why it's just like,
Thank you. We're good.
thank you.
Good evening, everybody. This is the Budget Committee meeting on Tuesday, January 20th. I'm in real time dealing with a family medical situation, so I'm going to pass the mic over to Courtney, and she's going to run the meeting tonight.
All right. Tonight's agenda, just to start us off, get the mic a little closer. We are going to start with public comment tonight, and I think there's potentially a few people here who might like to comment. We've also received some emails, so we'll start with the public comment for those in the room. So thank you for coming. Just a few reminders as you come up. You have please state your full name and your address, and spell your last name as well for the public record. You'll have 3 minutes, and please keep all your comments respectful. We cannot respond to any questions or interact in any dialogue. And then, we'll wrap public comment, and we will then proceed. I will read all of the emails that we've received as well to put those into the record, and we will go from there. Any other reminders, Heather, that I missed?
No, I think
Doing
that's
that from memory? Excellent. Would anyone like to start us off with public comment tonight? Please.
Hi, my name's Mike Michiche, Micciche, 7 River Farm Road, York. I'm addressing this to the board and the selectmen. Hopefully, they'll get on board with this too, but we really need to slow the spending and get our debts and taxes down. None of this is sustainable, especially for people on fixed incomes. We need to find ways to increase our revenue from vacationers so that the taxpayers are not supporting things to make it great for tourists and all the sales tax, et cetera, going to other towns with the sharing of taxes for the lower income towns. There have to be fees other than just expanding paid parking areas, which is a good idea, to get revenue from tourists that can be used for some project that we need, painting the Noble Light, repairing the bathrooms, et cetera. I also would like to know about the TIF funds. I believe they were set up by the beach places, the beach businesses, to help pay for funds, to help pay for things at the beach. I'm wondering why the taxpayers are paying the $150,000 or whatever it is to pick up the barrels at the beach. When we discontinued it, they complained, and now the taxpayers are paying for that. Where are those TIF funds, and how are they being used? I would like to know. We need to raise fees on a regular basis for building permits, new sewer and water connections, new developments, individual houses. Nothing should stay the same price for 15 or 20 years. Well, we are far below that. Towns are charging what other towns are charging, but then asking homeowners to pick up the tab for all increases. Another thing I asked the selectmen for a year or two ago was stop accepting roads for these developments. Let them stay private and let the homeowners, like a condo association, pay for the roads that are being put in instead of adding more plow trucks and more personnel to take care of it. We should stop accepting roads. From the sale of rentals or building or property we own, a select board, from the sale of rentals of buildings or property we own, a select board member should be at the consolidation meeting Wednesday night to answer this question. That was asked last week about the buildings being sold if we consolidate. Apparently, they are owned by the town, so schools are just saying this is not up to them, but it should be part of the discussion. We need to stop while we recognize to get a hold of our spending, stop the spending until we can get a hold on it. Adding things in 1 year that are going to be paid for eternity is not sustainable. One example is every police officer having a car to take home. It's not the upfront cost. This locks us in for rebuying more and more cars all the way down the line, as well as more bonding. This is just one example. I'm sure there are many. We just keep adding and adding. When do we stop programs, reduce staff in meaningful ways, cut spending? Never. It's just always on the rise. This is not sustainable for anyone. Many long-term York residents are going to be forced out of town. We spent money to look at options for school consolidation, and no one looked into consolidating without adding any space. As per the school's own specs, we have space to fit all our students in 2 schools. While this may not be practical, certainly it would fit them in 3 schools. Move the superintendent's office to a schools now so that building can be sold or rented. This is just a fact. Inflation rose 2.7% in
Mike, your
year
time's
20.
almost up.
All
so
right,
go
I'm
ahead.
almost done.
Yep.
2.7% in the last year. Social Security rose 2.8 for 26. Salaries increased about 3 to 3.5% over the last year. We cannot sustain the tax increases in spending, rising 8 to 10% a year on fixed incomes. We need more scrutiny, but over needs and wants, and from all departments, and also proof of what they need the money for, not just taking them for their word, and using the surplus funds to reduce the year's taxes. We're just spending money that we don't have. You know, even if we use the surplus funds, that's still money that the town has. So I don't think we should be subsidizing the expenses for a year with that on top of our taxes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Would anyone like to go next? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Judith Hogan, and I live at 65 Darcy Road, Hogan. I don't think anyone in this room can deny that the average Americans are facing significant financial issues with today's economy. Rising health costs, food prices, housing, energy, and that's just to name a few. I think, unfortunately, the volatile political climate that we're facing might also contribute further to these in the future. This is one of the reasons I'm struggling to wrap my arms around two very expensive proposals that we're looking at. The first being the consolidation of the schools, with costs that are running anywhere from $33 million to $88 million. And the second is the proposed community center. And we're looking at a price tag of about, $40 million for that. They've thrown out some projections of how that might impact taxes, and they're throwing out $500 for school consolidation and another $250 if the community center goes through. And those figures don't even include tax dollars for the other departments or services in our town. Because I worked in insurance for 25 years, I love numbers and percentages, as I'm sure you guys too. So I'm going to bore you for a couple of minutes with some numbers about York. The numbers that I'm going to share with you actually came from the 2020 census. The total number of people living in York year-round at that time was 3,873. We're just going to call it 14,000. And at that time, we had 5,663 households. If we take a look at some of our demographics by age, 36 of our population is over 60. And that kind of ties in with what Mike just said. I also took a look at what the poverty level is in town. And again, that came from the census information. The poverty level in town is 5% across the board. However, among seniors, that rises a little bit to 6%. At that time, whoops, I skipped a page. At that time, the poverty level for a single person was $12,760. For a family of four, the poverty level was $26,200. And let's face it, that's not a lot of money for anybody to be living on. Now, this is where I'm going to get a little blunt. Unfortunately, the track record in York for major expenditures is not stellar. We spent $750,000 to buy a piece of property on Long Sands Road at the intersection of Woodbridge with the intent of putting a town hall in there. That never happened. We also spent a significant amount of money to purchase land to build a police station on. Unfortunately, once that went through, we found out that that land was not buildable, and it just plain wouldn't sustain the police department. The community auditorium was built with a promise that it could be rented out to generate income. The way it was bonded did not allow for that. And we spent $4 million to buy a portion of Long Sands Beach. And it's debatable whether we even needed to spend that money. I realize that voters played a hand in this too. They voted for it, they approved it. My biggest concern is that it seems like we're always in a rush to get major expenditures, even if it's only on the referendum. And I don't think we're doing doing due diligence, and providing voters with a full understanding of what we're actually voting on and what those costs represent. And I'm not just talking about present-day costs, but I'm also talking about future costs too, because they can play a significant role.
1 minute left. Just saying.
What's that?
1 minute left.
Okay. We know that our school population is decreasing, and we know it's going to continue to decrease. So I'm surprised that within the school consolidation program, we're not including a full assessment of staffing at our schools, looking at student-to-teacher ratio, and shouldn't we really be considering reducing staff? On the matter of the community center, with a town population of 14,000 residents, do we really need to spend $40 million on a community center? And what are our yearly costs going to be? You know, I guess I look at you folks on the Budget Committee, and what I would really like to have you do is look at the validity, the needs of the costs that are coming before you, and the cost and the benefits from that. And also weigh that against what's happening to the folks that live in this town and are paying taxes. I also urge all taxpayers in New York to really look at what we're voting on and understand what the cost is and what the benefits are associated with each item and its impact on taxes. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Is there anyone else here today that would like to speak for public comment? Okay. I'm going to transition to reading some of the emails we received. All right. So the first that was submitted, this is from Nina Wright. And I will summarize some of these points as well, especially if several emails make the same point as well. There's so many areas I want to speak to as it relates to our town budget. However, I'm going to look at this at a high level. We collect taxes on property and other business assets. Our tax is based on assessed value that we, the taxpayer, have no benefit from unless we sell our homes. So these values directly affect the taxes we pay. Not only is the town not able to stay with the guardrails of the assessed values, they are consistently looking for more revenue. You talk about second homeowners. They have a voice but no vote, and you address adding more taxes to them, along with the parking and whatever the town can do to feed its insatiable appetite to add more facilities and personnel and capital projects. Maybe it's time to stop the feeding frenzy, sell some of the assets, postpone projects until the bonds are paid. Those are just some general commentary around all of the increases and taking a step back on the increases. Next submittal is from Marina Males. Dear Budget Committee, thank you for your work. I'm on the board of York Public Library, and I'm writing in support of the full funding for the requested budget of the York Public Library. The library staff and board have carefully considered each item in the budget and are requesting funds to sustain library operations for the coming year with an eye for frugality, value for the taxpayer, and diversifying funding streams. York Public Library is a hub of activity in our town and a vital place for arts and culture, learning, connection, and community resources. Please pass the requested budget to keep York Public Library strong. The next is from Sam Ramus. To the Budget Committee, I am writing to strongly support approval of the York Public Library budget being discussed today, January 15th. My family finds great value in the library's programming, and we would like to see this important organization continue to thrive. Thank you for your consideration. Next email is from Karen Tabora. I'm writing to urge the committee to exercise firm fiscal restraint in reviewing the proposed town budget. Given the ongoing pressures on taxpayers, I ask that the budget be sent back to town departments with clear direction to reduce spending, prioritize essential services, and halt any new or expanded expenditures. I also request that the school department be directed to explore consolidation options that do not include any additional square footage and instead focus on better using existing facilities. In addition, the town should actively evaluate the use, lease, or sale of underutilized town-owned properties to help reduce long-term debt and offset spending. Budget decisions should focus on limiting tax impacts and reducing bonded debt, not adding to it. Next was an additional email from Nina Wright that speaks specifically to school items. So we have reviewed that and sent that to the school committee for their review. The next is from Bill Goodwin. The rate of inflation for the last 12 months is 2.7%. Social Security has increased by 2.8% for 2026. The average salary increase is 3 to 3.5. What items on the town budget would be cut if the town held the overall increase to 3%? If the town was allowed an additional 1% for projects that would improve the efficiency of the town government, what projects would you include? And a follow-on email also from Bill Goodwin. The accumulated fund balance should be returned to the taxpayers. The normal process is voters approve an expenditure for various items each May. Expenditures are totaled and town revenues are totaled. Then the total expenditures are reduced by total revenues to determine the taxpayer portion. As you know, taxpayers pay the vast majority of the budget. The fund balance should be treated like the rest of the town revenues. We know the dollar amounts that were not spent in June, so all of that money should be subtracted off the bottom line before the tax rate is calculated. So it's really just a commentary on process. And that is it. Before we close public comment, any others?
Court, there was one more.
Is there?
Yeah.
She
Came in,
doesn't have an address, but
it came in
Susan
on
gave me the-
Saturday.
Okay. Sorry if I missed that one. I'm gonna steal your computer, Adam.
for it.
Thank you. All right. This one is Patsy Huntsman. First of all, let me thank you for putting the community center on hold. Way too much money for the few that will benefit from it, and such a tax burden on our town. I'm 76 years old and have lived in our Cape Netick home for 54 years. The last 3 years, our taxes have skyrocketed. We should concentrate on paying those bonds off so they're not passed down to our children and grandchildren instead of taking on more debt, which seems to be every year. The consolidation of the schools needs to come to a screeching halt until more research is done on what is needed. Comment on some of the declining enrollment statistics that we've seen recently. Many cannot afford the taxes and bonds have to be paid back. So, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate the catch.
Of course.
Okay. Any others? All right. With that, we will close public comment. Our next scheduled public comment period for everyone to see. Yep, I was looking for our next scheduled public comment date. There we go. Oh, public hearing number 2 is in bold. I somehow missed it. Thank you. So Thursday, February 12th, public hearing number 2. Okay. So we're going to dive into our agenda today. We have all town departments. So we're gonna, do you want to start with that one?
No, we're crossing this one off.
Okay,
I'm delaying that one.
great. So we're gonna start with the Municipal Social Services Review Board, I believe is at the top of the list. Or Wendy and Peter, hi, come on up. Or we can go in a different order if that's better for people who are here in person. You tell us.
Was the plan to have the SSRB here? Yeah. Okay.
They generally do. I'm not
Okay.
sure if they're notified or not.
Okay.
Okay,
Let me give them a call tomorrow and see if we can get it that time.
Thank
all
you.
right.
Thank you.
That's a quick one. That's good.
Do you want to go in the order as presented in our agenda, or would you prefer to go in a different order based on people who are here to speak?
I think the order that you have planned is great.
All right.
Start with the
Clerk's office and elections up first.
Good evening. I'm Lynn Osgood, your town clerk and tax collector. I think my narrative speaks for itself. I just wanted to just highlight a couple things. Just that notice that none of my staff have step increases this year. The salary line increase is due to the new union contract, leading up to like 50 cents to $1 an hour more for my staff, plus the COLA of $265. That makes up the 7.7% increase in salaries. My salary is only increased by the COLA, and there's more paydays this year, so it should be, I was confused why it was 3.8 instead of 2.65, but there's 52.7 weeks this year versus the 52.1 in last year's, or this current fiscal year, so that's why it's 3.8. The buyouts are new this year. I know you've heard this from Parks and Recs as well. I did ask my staff whether they thought they'd take the buyouts, and they're pretty sure they're going to take the buyouts. So that's why that line is pretty high for my department. I have 4 full-time staff other than me, and I think they all might take advantage of that buyout. It's a nice benefit for them. FMLA is new. That's an increase in my budget as well. Other than that, that's the increase in the salary line. I like to focus on the non-salary line because that went down quite a bit. I have a 25.9 decrease in my non-salary budget. I really took a good look at my budget this year and got rid of things that I didn't need. We had upped my supply line when we moved into the new town hall because I didn't know whether I was going to need new holders for forms and things like that. That's done, we're settled, so I slashed the heck out of that and got rid of a lot of money that I don't need out of that one, so that was a nice cut. I also, I went out looking at the parking sticker printing and found a new company, and that was a huge savings, so that was nice too. And I got rid of our training line for travel, because we don't travel anymore with the all our training done through the state is done online, so that was nice to be able to do that. So that led up to my decrease in non-salaries to negative 25.9%. So I'm pretty proud of that for an overall increase of 6.1.
Very good.
Thank you, Lynn.
Anything on the?
Questions from anyone?
I did my dog license today. It was very easy.
Oh, good. Good. Thank you for doing that. You don't want to pay that late fee.
No, I was going to say it's
No.
usually much more because I'm always late.
Oh,
so.
good job then. I'm so proud of you. Yeah, that's good. Anybody listening, you have until the end of the month to avoid late fees for that dog license. Yeah.
Thank you for being proactive about the office supplies. It's just nice to hear people thinking about that without us having to look back at past years. and
Oh,
being
you're
like, Why is
welcome.
that over?
Well,
Why is that over?
As a taxpayer as well, and Peter was very encouraging to us to really look at our budgets this year and decrease whatever we could to help that overall percentage. So thank you for saying that.
Did you intend to add some of this stuff back in next year? I thought
No.
you were-
No, not at all. No, we're
So,
every day, we're running really smooth. So I don't anticipate the supplies going up. I don't anticipate the training. Like I said, it's done all on, the state's really good about that. Unless the printer, changes for this parking sticker, that might be a small, you're talking like $1,000. It's not going to be huge, but no, I think I'm pretty level funded now. Like I said, that big increase with the supplies was when we moved into the town hall. I was really nervous that we were gonna need a bunch of stuff because we just didn't know. It was a new space, but we're really settled, so it's nice.
I was going to ask about the new administrative contract. Can you give us any ideas on what that means? You said $1 increase.
The contract, and please correct me if I'm wrong, guys. They got 25 cents January 1st an hour. People that fall, and my staff all falls under this contract. Then they get another 25 cents July 1st. So we had to make up. So I didn't budget for the 25 cents this year. So that 50 cents is in next year's budget. And then there's a 50 cent an hour not a stipend. What do you call it? Like incentive? I don't know. It's a 50 cent an hour, 50 cent an hour increase if you have a special certificate that doesn't relate to your job. So I have some staff that have bachelor degrees in fields that have nothing to do with being a town clerk tax collector. They'll receive an additional 50 cents an hour due to this contract that was negotiated. So that will, right?
It's if you, if you have education above and beyond what's required for the position,
So if you're overqualified, it's a way to be compensated.
essentially, yes.
Got it.
Yeah, and I have
Overqualified.
at least
Think of it
one.
like there was, we can talk about this because it's all,
Everybody's going to be
it's all
affected by
past
it.
tense now. We've ratified the agreement. So a lot of our, almost all union contracts have some education incentive in them for, like for police department. If you've got, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, master's, some of them even have doctorate. If you've got something, which is a real thing. I've hired a rank and file police officer with the pharmacology degree before, so that's fascinating. So, and there are steps, right? Like you'll get like X dollars an hour if you have this, or you'll get 50 cents, 25 cents, 50 cents, $1.20, something like that. And that's all negotiated. So we avoided that in this contract because specifically our jobs, so the admin side of this, all the jobs have specifications for, like either you need a educational component or you don't. In the police field, for example, there's a benefit to having education where there's not education required for the job. It's proven to reduce use of force. It's statistically tied to the level of education of the officer, for example. So we like to incentivize things like that. We don't incentivize it to the same level for fire contracts, for example, like physical fitness and health outside of the workplace are more beneficial how well a firefighter does a job and that they don't have a heart attack, which is a major thing in fire and EMS services in the middle of a shift, right? So like we want to prioritize health in employees as opposed to education levels. So we did not negotiate a education, like a education schedule, but we said if you have a degree or a professional certification that's not required by your field. So for example, Lynn's field, a good example is there's an above and beyond certification you can do for clerks, the CMC certification. So it's not required for the job, but if somebody gets that, in theory, people will, they'll understand the job better, they'll understand the law better, and people have better customer service when they're walking the door. So there's some compensation for that. It's not at the same level as, necessarily a new degree or something like that, but also if you have a degree that's not required as part of your job, the idea is that you've gone through formal education, you have a broader experience base, maybe you can help your coworker do something, or you can contribute to the office in a way that you couldn't before. So that's written into the contract. It's a professional certification or the level of education that's not required for the job. So for example, if it's a bachelor or master's degree required for the job posting and somebody comes in with a master's degree, they're not going to get an educational incentive for that. But if it's an associate's degree and someone comes in with a master's degree, essentially overeducated for what the minimum requirements of the positions are, they'd be compensated.
And is this it's a flat 50 cents no matter how many education or profession?
Yes, there's one,
There's
you
one
qualify for it once, yep. Regardless if you have 15 professional certifications and 2 degree levels above what's required for your job, it's the same as, in theory it's not, but it's monetized the same as somebody who requires an associate's degree having a bachelor's degree.
So this contract was just recently negotiated?
Yep.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just real quick, Lynn, can you just take me through how we ended up at 7.7 on the salaries line? I know you said it, but now that I'm looking at it, if we're doing COLA and no step increases, how did we end up at 7.7?
Well, we had the COLA, and then
Yep.
we had the 25 cent, and some 50%.
Okay.
50 cent, not 50%, sorry, 50
Yeah, yeah.
cent. So that is how, and those numbers are kind of given to me. I don't
Yeah, yeah.
come up with those numbers, but
Okay.
I questioned it too, because I said, this doesn't make any sense with
Yeah.
no step increases. Why is it so high? It's the,
The additional 4% seems like a lot.
yeah,
Okay.
and more work days this fiscal year.
Right.
It's not a ton, but it did increase the percentages.
Okay.
And you said an extra half pay cycle, is that right?
We went from 51, I wrote it down, 52.1 to 52.7. But when I did the math, because I was questioning my increase, because I'm like, if I'm only getting COLA, why is it 3.8 when I should only be getting 2.65? But when I figured out when I did the math, that's how it increased that little percentage.
It's the way the calendar falls, yeah,
Right.
with paydays, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for getting to the other reductions. Appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Because I didn't do that in elections.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about this.
noticed.
Before we get
If
to
it's time,
elections,
if it's time.
I was curious about you commented on the software upgrade
Oh, I didn't comment on the software.
in your write-up.
Oh, yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Your write-up that I'm reading here. Or you said software was the only major change. You've been digitizing a lot of records. I was just curious if you've seen any efficiency come from.
You would not believe the
processes?
difference. So for the scanning of the records, all of my vital records before like the early 2000s were down in the basement in fireproof safes. So if someone came in to get a birth certificate, whether there's a line out the door or not, one of my staff members would have to leave the station, get the keys, go down the cellar, go through 3 locked doors, then open the safe, find the right safe, find the record, bring it back up, then
This is
find
in the
it.
brand new town hall?
This is a brand new town.
Okay, or are we talking about the old one?
No, this is the brand new
Okay.
town hall.
All right.
They put sprinklers in my safe, so I have to keep all my records in fireproof safes in the basement. So it added a lot of time and it decreased the customer service level. So Peter said, why don't you scan the records? So I scanned the records, and now it is amazing. So if somebody comes in, we have them all filed by year, by birth, death, marriage. We look it up, we print it out, we put it on the special paper. It's like lickety-split done. It's amazing. So that has been a
Don't want
huge,
to take too much credit. We did spend about 3 months bashing our heads into the wall trying to figure out how you meet fire code with records retention of ancient records, which you cannot do in the United States of America, by the way, without very expensive Halon systems or
Yeah.
Ansel systems that put,
I remember the
non-
whole sprinklers in the,
Yeah.
like, that was very
Yeah.
confusing last
Yeah,
year.
it's,
Nice office supply room you have
Yeah.
there.
yeah.
you wouldn't think it would be that difficult to store paper, but it's actually, to actually get it in a way that's customer friendly, employee friendly, and meets fire code is inexpensive. Sorry, you can have 2 or maybe 3 of those 4, but you can't have all 4. So I think we saw, we were close to like, hey, do we put $100,000 Ansel or Halon? Ansel's the wrong thing, that's for fats oil, that's grease, but like a Halon type system in the record, and then, you displace all the air and you kill people, so you have to have, if it ever goes off, so you have to have evacuation protocols and ventilators and all that kind of stuff. and-
Digitizing seems much more.
Much more
Yeah, that one
efficient.
kind of came
Thank
to
you.
us in a fit, so thank you for being
Yeah, I
open
found a
to
great
that.
company out of Portland, and they just were amazing to work with, and yeah, we saved a ton of money, and it just has been a great.
And is that project now complete, or are you still working through
I
many
want to
years of
now
backlog?
keep focusing on the town records. The vital statistics are done.
Okay.
So that was the biggest time chunk out of my staff's day, out of trying to obtain those vital records down the basement. So I still have, I have most of the town records, like the elections and stuff from the, early like 1700s forward upstairs in a fireproof safe. Because I do have one resident that comes in weekly and wants to look at the actual books, even though they've already been digitized. But I still want to continue digitizing so it's easier for other people all around the world. We had a gentleman from South Africa was looking at our town records this last November, contacted James Kensis and I, and we're so excited to be able to look at the town records, and that was really neat. So I want to continue that. So that's in my contract line, is that digitization of the town records. But the vitals are done, and going forward, it's already done to the state database, so we don't have to worry about it.
That's great.
So thank you for asking that.
Thank you. Okay, should we move on to elections?
Okay, elections, yeah, pretty straightforward.
Yeah,
Oh,
I just
sorry,
wondered,
Chris.
why do people want to look at the town records?
A lot of people, well, it's really cool, but right now we have a gentleman researching town roads, whether they're public or private, when they became public or private, whether I have contractors or like surveyors coming in, they need to know the width of the road, and that is only in when we accepted the road. That could be in the 1700s or, the late 1900s. So a lot of people, and it's also a hobby of a lot of people. They love history, and they want to touch the paper, and they want to see the handwritten cursive from the town clerks. It's fascinating. I was looking for a death record today for one of our historians, and I got into the 1800s, and it's really neat to look at the writing and
So anybody can just go in and,
not vitals, but any of the town records. The town, when I refer to town records, it's like elections, mostly elections is what they're looking at, and town meetings, the town meeting minutes, your, budget committee minutes are all recorded and accessible publicly, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, elections.
All right, so elections, pretty straightforward, but it was an increase. The company that Mary Ann used before me, and then I had been using, went out of business, and so I had to find a new person to print our town ballots, and the length of our town ballots. So that was a huge increase. It was 26% last year, and anticipating even more this year. So that's the only really big increase in the election budget, other than, just staffing.
And that's small tools and supplies, or, no, that's contracted election
So
help?
that's in the contract line. Everything's in the contract line, yep.
So the 30,000 is an estimate, is that right?
Yeah, well, I have no idea how long the ballot's going to be. We did, town manager and I realized that we didn't have to print out all of the ordinances on the election, on the ballots, so we make sure we have the voter guide. But that has saved a lot of pages. So when you look at the ballot now, it's quite, the ordinances aren't all written out now. We're talking about ways, we hope, we sent the postcard last time for the voter guide. We have them available in the town hall. We're also talking about maybe a QR code at the election. I can't put anything in the voting booth. I checked with the Secretary of State, but I could put them like outside the voting booth. So that way, if somebody had their phone and had a question, we could refer them to the QR code. I'm not allowed to put anything other than the state instructions in the voting booth, but, so that way they have the information, but we're not paying to print it.
Yeah.
So, because it saved pages, and you're talking, like 40 cents a page sometimes, so.
This has been brought up before.
Yeah, we've talked about it, yeah, I mean, and I know that the select board and you guys have been talking about the length of the ballot and how to consolidate the items, and is that a good idea, but, yeah, I'll do whatever you want, I'll just, but, yeah.
So the voter guide should bring up that we didn't print one hard copy in November, which I think we were talking about, but the board did deliberate. I don't know if you were in on this discussion, but select board deliberated, and we will be printing regardless of length, it sounds like the May voter guide for the near future, or at least until the board composition changes, but there is a pretty strong majority.
That the postcard was not well received, or
I think they want people to have the full.
to have the full?
Yep, and with more information too, so not just limited to ballot, but some additional probably pages in the back, knowing that there's a cost associated with that. But there was a pretty heavy, well, I won't say heavy, but a moderately in-depth policy debate over what the pros and cons. And I think you guys, the same thing that you guys have been saying, just there's a cost, it's annoying, does everyone really need it? And I think the kind of consensus of that was, at least a majority of the board felt that the public needs like a booklet that they can bring with them physically, so. Or at least one per household, like we've been doing for the past 8 or 10 years.
I imagine too that the cost of, I don't know this for sure, but the cost of printing like a voter guide on sort of more standard paper might be more cost effective than a specialty ballot printing or something, like if we're gonna save space and cost, it seems like on the ballot is more cost effective, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but we do way.
The newspaper.
Yeah, you would
they-
think so, but the number of
mailing.
copies, like 11,000 copies of the voter guide, and that's like 40 pages each, as opposed to the ballot being, 5,000 or so, 4,000, 3,000, depending on the election.
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about, where the cost gets shifted if you take it from somewhere else, yeah.
Other questions on elections? No.
I'm sorry, I might have missed it. So, yeah, just contracted election help, I'm sure it's self-explanatory, but.
It's the printing of the ballots, that's the contract,
That's all,
yeah.
that's all it is, right? Okay.
We have 2 elections in the next fiscal year compared to 3 elections this fiscal year, but one of them is the gubernatorial election. So I thought about decreasing my employee line, but because of the political climate, I feel better having more staff there. It will also be a district election in November, so that means we have to have the 2 different check-ins, so I have to have more check-ins than I would at like the May, which is just 1 district. But I want to make sure that I have enough help and it's a safe environment and everybody feels safe voting.
That's because the rep district we have 2 state districts for a representative.
Yeah, depending basically which side of Route 1 you live on, you're in a different district, so,
Right.
And that's the same reason we're seeing the overtime line.
yeah. Well, I asked that question, is the overtime, I have 1 part-time employee that works the month before the election, and sometimes she works overtime, and then my staff, of course, will work overtime, because they work the normal week.
Right.
And then the election day can be anywhere from 12 to 20 hours.
Okay.
It's a long day.
It's a long day, but it's great.
What was the contract for the ballots and machine programming last year? It's 30 this year, 30,000, what was it last
I think it
year?
was 26. Hang on, I printed it.
Have we been good at predicting that?
I was not, because I didn't, the year I ran over budget to fiscal year '25 because my ballot printer quit, basically, so I had to overcompensate for that, and that's why the increase, and now,
So it was 26 last year?
I believe so. Let's see. I thought I printed it. That's my town hall, LHS, 27. Nope, I thought I had it. I don't, I'm sorry. But I'm pretty sure it was 26.
So multiple election workers too, Lynn. How many election workers about is $12,000 worth? What do they get paid?
They get paid very little, under $20 an hour, I believe, is what they get. And that's the person in the room. The contract line election workers, they're making like $16 an hour, hardly anything. They want to volunteer, but we pay them.
16 an hour, and you have about how many? So take
For
12,000.
the May election, we have like 5 check-ins, 2 to 3 at the machines, another 2 handing out ballots, maybe like 12 for the May, and then June will have twice the amount of check-ins. We'll probably have like 8 check-ins because of the districts. We'll have 4 people handing out ballots.
So if it's 2 elections and it's $12,000 at about $16 an hour, that's about 750 employees or workers. Is that anywhere near right? Am I doing
They're
that
each
wrong?
working like 12 hours, 12 to 14 hours for that day.
Okay, so this is hours, right? 750 hours. 750 hours. Okay,
Right. Times
all right.
Some of them are getting
16
overtime.
ish.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And prior to the election, it's not just election day.
No, we are usually, if we process ballots early, which we will do for May and June, I have people in my office the week before processing. So it's not just election day, it's the week before. I have an employee that works half-time, like a part-time employee that works the whole month before. As soon as absentee ballots are available, she's in my office.
Collecting ballots.
Issuing ballots, collecting ballots. Yeah, because it's just too much of a strain on everybody else trying to register their cars and.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Good. Does anybody else have questions on elections? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Len.
We will move next to code enforcement. Right?
We don't have climate action.
No, we
No.
postponed them.
Yep.
They were never notified, so.
Okay.
Code is tab 5, in case anyone is. Tab. Just
Well, that's obnoxious. Hi, I'm Harry Norton, Director of Code Enforcement. I just want to start off by saying thank you to Wendy and her staff. They put together so many numbers for us, and it just makes the whole process a lot easier. I've already submitted a narrative response to all your questions. I'm here mostly to field your questions, if you have any additional.
Yeah, we're happy to go through questions.
Yeah, I didn't have a speech prepared.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Any, from your narrative, are there any updates or commentary that you would like to share publicly? Obviously, I'm sure not everybody listening has all of the narrative in front, so if there's any highlights that you'd like to walk us through, that's great, and then we can dive into questions.
Well, I'm gonna highlight moving forward, because reflecting on the past is sometimes a little more not as fun. But I just want to bring into awareness to the public that we have this LD 1829 coming along, but that's not obviously to everybody, but we won't be adopting it as a town until 2027. So next fiscal year, this isn't really going to affect me, but the following fiscal year, it will begin to affect my budget.
Can you
The
explain to
state-
everyone what it is?
That's what
Yeah.
I'm about to do.
Yeah.
I just had to really sit down and think about this. So the state has passed LD 1829, which is a land use law, enabling 5,000 square foot lots for properties in the growth area, which for us is Cape Nettic River roughly to the York River, east of 95 vicinity is the growth. You can go into the GIS, town's GIS, and find future growth as a layer, and it'll show you exactly where it is. It lights up green. So essentially what's gonna happen is 5,000 square foot lots, the first you have to be on water and sewer. The first 5,000 square feet, as I understand it, will allow 4 units, residential units. And then you can still also have an accessory dwelling unit on it because every single parcel can have an accessory dwelling unit. So essentially 5 units on a 5,000 square foot lot, which is tiny, in case you're wondering.
Yes,
That's just
That's
for-
like an eighth of an acre.
I was gonna say,
There it
could you,
is.
yeah,
Okay.
an eighth of
You
an
got
acre?
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Less even.
It is less. So I've been having my own, I have my own internal thoughts about this, and I'm trying to be very nice about it.
This is not an internal meeting.
It's very public.
I just don't want to, that's why I'm being very careful what I say, because I have a lot of opposition for reasons that you wouldn't even think about. But long story short, 5,000 square foot lots, and then after the first 5,000 square foot lot with the 4 units, you then get you can have another 5,000 square foot lot, which then gets 1 unit, and then 5,000 for your second unit. That's for people with multiple acres of land. I don't know what the setbacks are going to be. I don't know all of the information. I just know that 5,000 square foot lots is happening if you're on water and sewer in the growth area. So that's gonna, I assume,
Can you, what you just said there, if you're on water and sewer?
yes, I have to be very clear about that, water and sewer. So you have
So a
to be
lot
on,
of that area is not on sewer.
correct, but a lot of it is also.
Yeah.
Right.
To your point, though, and that's gonna probably incentivize people to expand the town's water and sewer service. For example, the Nubble, in almost in its entirety, has water and sewer along the water, along the ocean. You're probably gonna see what is already a overbuilt rock be more buildable, because currently the lots sit at 12,000 square foot lots for Res 7. That's Res 6, but nope, that's Res 5. But anyway, Res 5, 6, and 7, which are the town subzones, all have 12,000 square foot lots if you're on water and sewer. So essentially, you're going to be able to double that
In most instances.
in most instances, because there are non-conforming lots. We can go into Article 17. No, I'm just kidding. I don't want to bore them to death. I'm just kidding around. So,
So picture the amount of houses on the Nubble doubling.
yep.
That's
And that's,
potential.
again, potentially, and I'm sure planning's going to cover this because Dylan's got stuff that's going to be worked out on all the paperwork, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All right. So long story short, I assume my building permits is going to, they're going to increase. I'm going to see that influx. So that's the one thing I really just wanted to, if you have, I imagine there's a lot of questions. And you're welcome, everyone's welcome to come to my office. I don't mind discussing this. I do it on a daily basis. There's just a tremendous amount to it. That I just covered I just glossed over it. There's more. But I just don't know what's gonna happen until about probably summer or fall with the details on what we're gonna adopt as a town, because we're a select board town. Whereas like a council form of government is going to be adopting this year. So I'm going to see what's going to happen with places like Wells and Agunquit. Is it Agunquit? Yeah, I think it might be Kittery for sure, has a council form of government. So I'll have a better idea what's going to happen by watching those other towns, hopefully. So that was a big one for the future. Speaking of this year coming up, though, one thing I did not cover in my narrative is you'll see a couple other increases that town manager and I have discussed to try to offload some of the expenses for other areas in town where we can. The number you'll see on an updated form about DPW, for example, is because the GIS part of that should come out of my budget. It's a my budget does cover GIS for the supplemental building ordinance. And the other component is I'm taking on a salary for somebody who does a lot of the work we do in our staff. So it just makes sense for my staff, for my budget to do what it can, because it keeps increasing. And I'm trying to spend it in a way that doesn't look irresponsible, of course. And if there's a way that I can subsidize any type of tax-paying dollars, I will. But at the end of the day, they're still paying for it. It's just not paying twice now. Because when your building permits get paid by the taxpayer ultimately, because that's how taxes work. So,
Sometimes, but not every building permit is occupied by a
Correct.
taxpayer or a resident.
But
so-
eventually, once it gets bought out, right, it becomes, yeah. I'm just saying that there's a lot, I'm trying to subsidize that is the point, where I can legally.
We talked about this at the intro, at the Budget Committee and Select Board's direction. I think we've been instructed over the past couple of years to kind of examine the use of outside revenues. This is one of them. It's about 200,000 additional dollars being absorbed into code or being paid for out of code revenue that are directly tied to code. If you remember, it's going to be tied by the way the ordinance is established and by law to something that has to do with the administration of code enforcement, which is, about 10-15% of the town hall operations are things that Harry has to use. So legal is one large component that we moved a portion of that into a conservative portion. It's probably more than that we pay for with tax dollars that defend code enforcement, challenges or enforcement actions, things like that. One of our primary legal obligations. So that's one thing. And then Harry mentioned compensating a planning position, most of a planning position out of that funding as well, because we sat down and did the math about how much of the planning department's work is directly related to code enforcement. Prior to applications, it's a big chunk of at least one person's job, probably even more than that, but just being conservative, I think that's easy to cover. We're continuing to look at that, so I know that there was some discussion, if you guys remember last year, on, well, why don't we increase fees? We have to first put everything that we can, fund everything that we can out of code enforcement, building permit fees, legally that pertain to that. Try to spend that balance down, and then after that, if we start to, spend that balance down, we can look at fees to bring that to a comfortable level. Based on our changes over the last 3 years, we've almost got that flat. I think Harry is forecast to pick up about $100,000 this year and lose probably about $150,000 out of that $1.8 million fund next year moving forward. So we've done this. We are moving in the right direction, but not very fast, which is a good thing. I don't think we want to dive bomb that fund balance, but
Is that
move
why
it.
you keep saying you're being conservative with these estimates?
no, just being conservative in what we actually fund out of there, meaning I want it to be defensible if it's ever challenged. That it's not a direct code enforcement expense. I think we could, if we went with a fine tooth comb, I think we looked at legal, we put 50,000 in there, but there might have been like 67,000 or 59,000 or something that was actually spent out of code
Oh, so not,
for code last year, but we don't know if that'll replicate this year, so we kind of go a little bit lower just to make sure we're not, spending 40,000 in legal this year and budgeting 50. In theory,
Yeah.
we shouldn't be doing that. The ordinance says that
that's a
money
tough
should.
one
not
to
that
predict.
conservative, but not like,
Yeah.
okay.
Is there any way to save that money for a rainy day? I know it's the goal of the code department to, be self-funded in perpetuity. But what if that didn't happen? Is there a fail-safe so that we're
Yeah,
not
there's a
not
comfortable,
injecting taxpayer funds into the department?
yeah, there's a comfortable balance there to cover several years of minimal revenue. If Harry made, instead of $1 million a year in permit fees, if you made 500,000, we could float that department for probably 4 years off that.
I don't think we have the balance information in here.
No, we
So-
didn't have it finalized. It's, I want to say, yeah, Wendy's got a forecast that she put together. We'll email that out. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did see it last year at some point.
It's virtually the same. It was like plus, I think it was plus 100 from, plus 100,000 from last year. So that's good because it was going up like drastically for the years
Yeah,
before
right.
that, and we've flattened it out. And I think it looks to me if the receipts stay, Harry thinks his receipts will go up. I look at it like if there's a recession and receipts go down, so maybe it's in between Harry's prediction and mine, but if they stay flat or go down slightly, we'd be losing money slowly out of that account, which I think is very comfortable to bring that down. We don't want it to go too low. I think to get to maybe half of your point is that we don't want to have to do a, whiplash where we've got to go back to using taxpayer funds. I do think that it's healthy. Our fees are relatively low compared to other places, and we're not in a rush to raise them, but we have that option there very easily if that happens. And then also if we really have a major recession and building cuts for multiple years to a low level, of course, don't like to think about it, but Harry's department does not need to be funded at the level it's funded at. If we go from building, $100 million a year worth of buildings to $1 million a year worth of buildings, we probably need an inspector, not 5 inspectors, I'm not saying that that's gonna happen, but if like a doomsday scenario ever
Code
happened,
officers.
we probably wouldn't keep the code enforcement department at 7 people if that was the case.
We've talked about that, and
Harry would not just be the director, but he'd also be his only employee. So
it'd be very interesting on my own family's properties too. Anyway, so
I just emailed you the fund balance.
Thank you.
It's just a one-page spreadsheet showing like year over year, so. And I think you've only got, the important thing is in 26, I was looking at that earlier, you've only got year-to-date revenues of like 500,000, so that's like fiscal year-to-date. That's that one, yeah. So it's, well, there's only one copy,
I
so.
know, but I
Sure, if you want.
I don't need it.
Yeah, if you want to pass that, so that, we expect that to be, Harry expects that to be over $1 million with their busiest building time coming up. It's usually the spring, so,
Okay.
again,
So as you're exploring other costs, just curious if there's anything that you're thinking might be able to shift into the budget? Thinking about it as well, a lot of the rezoning with the new laws that are coming, is there any of that could be covered out of code? Or anything
So
new that
I've been
you're
doing,
exploring?
but I'll just say I'm open to everything that's legally allowed to be defensible in my budget. For example, like
we spend on some town hall stuff mid-year, directly attributable to him, like things that weren't, if something wasn't thought of. I'm thinking of, we have Luke might talk about it, we have the
GIS thing.
the LiDAR, the flight, so using the GIS fund to offset the cost for mapping, that would traditionally be a planning and code enforcement taxpayer. In past, it's been, mapping or scanning or, orthophotography or LiDAR scanning. So we are proposing for that this year to come completely out of the GIS portion of the code enforcement fund, so that would be like a 50.
Out of code enforcement, you're saying?
Well, so the building permit revenue is split into GIS, Geographic Information Systems Fund, and also to code enforcement. It's got to be used for one of those two purposes. So it would come out of the GIS side of that revenue, but the same revenue source, his building permit revenue.
And I have to say, our maps are incredibly outdated, so it's something that's well overdue.
It's kind of letting Luke, our tax assessor, who you all know and we'll talk to soon, Harry and Dylan look at that and kind of say, hey, we need a better, we show wetlands. If you click on the GIS layer and click on water, it shows water on dry land in some places, and vice versa, it shows dry land on where you see a picture of the ocean. So things like that aren't exactly accurate, doing an actual, what is it, a 1-inch LiDAR scan where they are 6-inch or something, where they measured very precisely the contours of the ground. That's going to help everybody. You don't really think it'll help you that much, but when you need an elevation certificate, or if a builder needs to know what your elevation is, or a surveyor, that's going to help all of them do work for all of us more efficiently in the private sector, so.
You kind of see it with the updated flood maps, like things got taken completely out of the flood area, but some got added in, so you're going to see it both ways. I do want to add in real fast, I glossed over all the cool stuff. We are digitizing our records still, so that will be accessible to the public. Instead of having to come in here and pull a folder physically, they can actually just go online, click a button, look at a property and see all the file information for it. OpenGov is our permitting software that just got launched about last September, October, and it's been phenomenal. I've gotten 2 complaints, and the 2 complaints went as high as the select board, but everyone else has loved it, and that happens, and I still welcome the people in to try to walk through the traditional method if we have to. So that has been good and positive overall.
Those are trends. I know we didn't talk a lot about that. Lynn's still here, so she can, ears up in the back if she's listening. But we talked a lot about what that does to Harry with having stuff, applications online. It's a watch, it's a kind of measure, and it's a see what, what the impact of that is. I know we're not expecting a huge immediate impact, but like long-term, for example, with the clerk's office, we're switching to online tax payments. What is that going to do for through the door numbers? If we get to the point where they can do, dog licenses and this is big. Maybe in La La Land with state systems, but when you can do all those functions online, like what does that do long-term for staffing needs? So
Yep.
something that we're watching. It hasn't, none of that stuff is drastically driven down feet through the door, but if that happens in the future, it's, it can be a slow adjust as we go on with, I know you don't have a ton of administrative
I
staff.
was just gonna
but
say,
if
I don't
all-
have dog
But
license.
if all of a sudden, people don't come through the door anymore and it's like 100% online permitting, maybe the counter service looks different in Harry's department.
What do we, as we digitize across various town departments, just curious, how do we educate people to shift to more self-serve and actually see then some of the efficiencies?
So I'm guessing that when your files are done, you're gonna have a terminal in the front of the town hall that people use.
I have, my dream goal is that, yes, have like a kiosk where they walk in and they can whatever they want.
So you're gonna access it yourself. So instead of walking up the window, standing in line for, listen to 3 plumbers ask questions about fittings and somebody asks a question about where their garage is supposed to go, literally it just says property files here, and you go over to the terminal, pull up your thing. Maybe we might have to work with a public printer or pay to print or something like that. You might have to sort that detail out. We haven't really thought
That's
through
details,
that.
yeah.
But you can put it up on a screen, see everything that's in your file. Then if you have a question, you can get in line but hopefully the first time through the door, at least in other places I work where we have that service where everything's tied to the GIS, which is another thing. So when you're clicking on your parcel and looking at it, it could pull up PDFs, for example, or could at least link you to the site where you can get those.
And that's what we're
something
good,
that we can do.
that is the goal with OpenGov, is to have the link on OpenGov
So the first-
and GIS. So
Generally, the first time you go through a process and you see it self-serve and you can get that really efficiently yourself without having to wait in line, and not that there's anything wrong with waiting in our line, but
still
most
saying
people,
hi.
most people would prefer not to do that. It goes away pretty quickly, so.
Right.
And just roll it out to the public, when it's there, let people know that it's there.
Just trying to be more efficient to the public and helpful. So,
I think he's done a ton of changes this year, that at least working on the full file digitization and the online permitting software. Those are 2 major changes that I would say are not 21st century. Those are like, sure, they're 21st century products, but we're not breaking records by being the first adopters on
This is
those
the
things.
first
They're common practice in other places that for some reason, years and years and years ago,
Yeah.
weren't pursued here.
We're not on the cutting edge.
no, we're more Monday quarterbacks than we are.
We're like
pioneers.
mid-edge of the blade, not on the
I
cutting
would
edge.
call that the sweet spot of technology adoption.
Yeah, we should
Yeah.
have maybe
Right,
done it like
so-
2 to 3 years ago, but I think we're getting
All right,
close.
we'll go with it.
It's allowing others to fail first.
Yeah. I had a question is going to the budget itself. We've seen across the entire town a significant increase, obviously, in all of our salary and benefit lines. I don't believe you've reduced staff based on your discussion and your write-up, but the overall increase is only
We actually
1.8%.
added stuff. Yeah.
So, but it's a very small increase, far less than what we've seen in other departments. So I was just curious what's going into the numbers. It might be more of a Wendy question, I'm not sure.
Is it magic?
The answer.
A smaller increase is a
wanna try it?
positive, but I'm just curious, it was a significant
try?
difference.
I mean, other than the fact that there's turnover from people.
Right.
Is that okay, actually, I think I have the answer.
Okay.
This is great. So I had
very
2
exciting.
tenured people leave, and I have 2 new people who have started.
Oh, I
So it's
see.
a different pay.
Yep.
So 2 people retired? Or,
One retired, one,
okay, but you replaced
on.
2 staff people who were tenured
You
with
got
2
it.
different, got it.
and
at
they're
different
doing
pay
a great
scale.
job, by the way. I'm gonna make that clear.
Excellent.
This is
Okay.
ever audited.
That's great. Thank you.
Could you talk about the increase in your training, meetings, and also travel? Because we've heard a
Yeah.
lot from other departments about things being remote and so less expensive, but yours is quite the opposite. So, yeah.
The reason is because, so prior to Okay, so there was the event known as COVID that is still talked about because it was there. The state stopped a lot of the trainings, a lot of the in-person trainings. So we have a high holy one that we call, and once a year, it's every code officer from the state comes in. We do huge amounts of learning. I know for a fact I'm going this year because of LD 1829. I want to learn a lot more about it and be able to convey to people. That'll be next March. We went this. We're gonna. Oh, that's this March. Jeez, I forget what year we're in. Okay, sorry. This March will be the one I go to, and probably the one after. I do want to start making those meetings, is the point, because there's a lot of learning to be done there. There's a lot of legal speak. There's a lot of code changes. There's building materials that are due. It's just the mecca for Maine. So we weren't going to those, and now if the staff wants to go, I mean, it's going to cost 4 people, possibly 5. To go up there and learn for 2 days. And that's why I see the travel happening. Also, the state of Maine does a very, very good job with subsurface wastewater, which is septics for the layman. And we get to go up to places like Bath and really get to learn about soils and be able to do a better job looking at what's going into the ground. So I'm not just going, yeah, good job, whatever, and it's a bad design. So, yeah. Point being,
The public
education.
benefit of that is your neighbor's septic doesn't leak all over.
I
It's
just
not
don't
necessarily
want
being
that
goofy.
happening.
It's that someone who doesn't know what they're doing maybe approves a septic that shouldn't be next to your well or something like that.
This is why I have him. He's a translator. It's great. You do a great job.
Comes at an enormous cost some days. I think the specific training question too is new staff. So I think you did a good job. 2 people that had building experience
Lots of
or engineering and drafting experience, but didn't have any direct code enforcement experience. So there's a little bit of it's not that the material is foreign or the topics are foreign, but it's just getting certified and staying certified for the first couple of years requires a little bit of a bump compared to somebody that's got it nailed down, has to take one refresher course once a year or something like that. So
And I wanted to give my guys the guidance I didn't have when I started. You weren't here. But it was just a lot of guidance to get.
I wouldn't have been giving you guidance
up to
even if I
speed.
was here. So.
I need to get people up to speed fast. So that we've created a training program internally, and this is a part of it. Just train. So
Yeah. Thanks.
And you'll see the reflections of the code software and then also legal fees in there for that's the significant hit down in the bottom half.
How many employees was it, Harry? How many employees in code now?
code full time or
Full-time.
Full time. Okay. So hold on. So it's 4, 5, 6.
And so many part-time, or how many FTEs?
I have 2 part time. Well, one's part time. The other one is just off and on. But
Okay,
You got 2 part-time people, less than 1 full-time equivalent. I'd say 3/4 maybe,
yeah, 3/4. Yeah.
2/3, 3/4, somewhere around
So
there.
yeah, it's just I'm doing what I can. Again, the volume of phone calls doesn't seem to be really waning, even on the slow times. So you have to have people answer phones.
Can you tell us what the community development department is?
Yeah, I was going to ask about this. Like, is now the
Did
time
I
to
actually bring
rethink
that
the
up?
structure?
Oh, geez. I actually wrote that in there. I thought that was just like
You
me.
said short of drastic changes.
Yes, and I was-
comma, community development department.
Yes.
I thought I wrote that as a draft.
He's like,
I thought I wrote that as a draft. Well, so it's been talked about. It's not like it's.
an inside
So
voice.
moving on to our next department head, who can also speak. No,
You can do a joint session by any means.
Just,
Come on
so
up.
what it is like, so it's a fee.
yeah. So I think they're all referring to the old structure. So it's not new. It's old. It's how
It is
we used to be
rebirthing.
set up. You would have a planning and code combined department. One way to look at it, we've gone back and forth of whether that's a good. There's not a huge structural in terms of employees. There's probably some command and control and information flow benefit to it, but it's not. It gets less important when you have staff who can get along, and right now everyone can get along pretty well. But it's important to look at, and I think there's some really significant reasons if, for example, in the future, department heads or line level staff can't get along and there's a dispute between them, that makes it not my issue to babysit 2 warring departments that have checks and balances over each other's departments, maybe the best way to put it. That's not happening. I don't want to imply that it is, but you could run into a situation pretty easily where planning departments review and improve things, and they set goals and tell people what they essentially can do before they start developments, and then you get halfway through something that's approved in code, is it a disagreement with the planning department and they fail somebody, you get some really dysfunctional, it's what makes people hate municipal, city, and town government sometimes, like when you get those two sets of contradicting, or for example, an example that maybe is a little more at home, like a non-town department, like a water district or a sewer district, that's their own governmental unit. If they have a different standard and code can't enforce it, but they can in, you know, planning and code in a town approve, this doesn't happen here either, but approve something and then, you know, they fail on inspection for their water or their sewer connection or something like that. Those are, when things don't line up correctly, that there's a major benefit there. We're not currently there, but it gets batted around probably once a year. Is it,
Would it unlock more opportunities for us to use the
Revenue
revenues?
sharing, yeah.
That's the
And
reason
in,
why I wrote it.
I think,
so
yeah.
obviously we've talked about our permitting fees are,
Yep. So there's a easy way to, yes, I think the ordinance can be amended without combining the departments, and Dylan and Harry and I have already looked at that for, so the supplemental building ordinance establishes the building permit fee and says what it can be spent on.
okay.
We can put that in front of voters to use it for other things, probably not like just general fund revenue, but,
Yeah. How broadly can that be expanded? Like, what's the opportunity? I'm not,
well, I think there's direct nexus, and Dylan would agree with this. Hopefully he's nodding behind me. There's, I
we're
think we all,
watching. He's thinking.
all-
Doing
Yeah.
doing something.
we all feel there's a direct nexus between planning and code. So there, you know, a building permit application fee, the process is reviewed and approved in planning, and the long-term planning of it is done in planning, and then the boots on the ground to actually make sure what's approved gets built on the ground is Harry's side of things. So there's definitely like a development, we talked, I think a couple people brought up impact fees. There's a nexus where that is an impact of development, is both on the planning department and on the code department. If you had no no development, you would have significant, it wouldn't be zero, but you'd probably have the demand of the planning department. There's still long-term planning that they have to do regardless of development. But if there's no development pressure, you probably take away 85% of Harry's demand, or maybe 80% of it. You'd still have to like do inspections of existing things and follow up on complaints and things like that. But without the new development, you take away a big chunk of Harry's work and probably at least half of the planning department's work, I would hope, if there were no development. So no site plan review, no subdivision, nothing like that happening. There's still work for them to do, but
We're not expecting that to happen.
Drastic, so probably not.
Yeah, we're expecting, it sounds like, development to increase.
I mean, we live in a region
think.
where there is
Well-
a housing shortage, so I can't imagine.
yeah, but
there's
I
not a
don't
demand.
think it's guaranteed whether it
Oh, no,
stays
of
at the
course.
astronomical
Yeah.
development rate with, you know, whatever's on the, yeah, I would say it can go between mild to moderate growth and severe growth.
Yeah, I'm just trying to, so going back, and I might have missed something as you described that, so just going back to how we've written our ordinance, and it sounds like we've written it in a way that's pretty restrictive on how we can use the permit fees.
Moderately.
That's the supplemental building code, yeah, that's where that comes from.
Yeah, so, and I hate asking hypothetical questions, but I'm trying to understand what the opportunity is. So if that were rewritten in a way that actually opens up the ability for us to use those revenues in different ways, then what would that allow us to potentially cover? And what's the, if we were to then normalize our building fees, how much more revenue do we pick up to offset other costs? Like, what's the opportunity there that we're missing?
My argument or my recommendation is always tied to the cost, the actual cost of development. And Wendy made a good point in writing to me here a minute ago, is that the planning department also charges application fees. So when you go through the planning process, and I know they're in the process of looking at that as well, to offset planning costs. Otherwise, I mean, so if it's a fee, by definition tied to an expense the town has, that offsets an expense the town has because of that activity, I would say it's a fee, it can be spent on that, out of the, you know, development, building permit fee. There's not a huge number of things that aren't, there's some, we will continue to look at it year after year, or even this year, next year. But if you just charge fees based on, because there's someone there that's willing to pay it, that becomes taxation. And there's pretty good argument that, you know, building a house is not a form of taxable activity, and There's no such thing as a contractor's tax that, you know, if you have to tie it to the cost to the actual community.
Yeah, it has to be
There's a lot of-
justifiable.
Right, there's a lot of creative ways to do that, and I think we're doing a lot better than most with this setup, but I know we don't have all of the creative opportunities there to offset costs.
Well,
I
there's a
think
lot
we-
of projects, I think, if I'm, you know, just across the two departments that are getting deferred. Maybe not a lot, but several key projects, I think, that have been talked about that have been deferred due to costs. Just wondering if there's opportunity there, things we should be doing for the benefit of the town that could be covered through revenues that we're preventing ourselves from using,
I think you could probably pay for a lot of those with the existing revenues, I think.
if we can rewrite the ordinance.
Yeah, but also maybe some of the things that are deferred may not have full support to do them right now,
Okay.
It'd be more than a rewrite.
or may
too.
not be priorities, I would say, just based on input from elected officials,
So do we,
which you guys are free to add your opinion to that too, if you'd like, so, yeah.
do we charge an allocation of the overhead of the town offices and town management? Like, does a portion of your
We
salary?
don't, that's next on my list for
Yeah,
development.
Alex's salary,
smart.
like, that to me would feel like another important thing to look at.
That's our next step, yeah.
Yeah.
So, we got the legal in there, we're moving the planning in there, I think we've talked about, wouldn't be huge, but it might be, you know, it'd be
Couple hundred
it would be very similar to the $200,000 shift you saw this year, probably,
Yeah,
if you started getting into the overhead, operation, heating, electricity, that's all in
These shifts
it's in
are
the back of my mind, yeah.
meaningful. I mean,
Yeah.
one shift like that obviously means,
Right.
you know, an FTE, right? Or two that we get to.
Also trying not to like play all of it in one year to adjust it, not over 5 years, but over a couple years, so we can see the trends in the fees and whether things need to go up or down. So it's gonna be a continuous shift. That's on the list for sure, with, at least in the long-term plan, to look at those operations costs.
Are there best practice benchmarks in general for municipal government of like, based on the number of residents, there's a general ratio of planning, of code?
There is,
of-
but you could adopt any, you know, you can compare yourself with benchmarks to any community, but there's so much difference between
Sure.
structure, between built environment.
Yeah.
The hardest part is just the general structure of local government, what we have here versus what a city would have versus what in most places in the country is done by county government. So almost everything that we do in most of the country would be done by the county. So like planning, code enforcement, fire protection in a lot of places is done at the county level. And that's a big different animal than municipal or city fire protection, for example, because you're protecting large swaths of open area with, you know, much higher cost per person. So the benchmarks vary so wildly by the different areas of the country. But yeah, we can absolutely,
Yeah.
like per capita things, and you would see like, whoa, why does it cost 1/10 as much per capita for, you know, this in Arizona as it does in Maine? And it's not just like weather or snow. There might be some structural differences. Or why is it 1/10, you know, as much in Maine as it is in South Carolina or something like
Right.
that? I would say just broadly speaking, this is a common question in Maine. Why is per capita cost of government so high? If you look at kind of how we operate here, this is a good physical kind of built environment. Lots of roads, not a lot of people, a lot of open space compared to some areas, a lot of open space with roads connecting it as opposed to, you know, like areas of the west where they've just got dirt track everywhere and a couple interstate highways and a couple county roads between them. Those things vary so wildly
Yeah.
area to area.
I
So
think my question is a little bit broader than just thinking about the human capital in town hall. I'm thinking, you know, taking into account some of the public comments tonight, right? Like how much road, you know, what is the proportion of people in DPW to the miles of roads?
Very low.
What's that?
very low compared to most places in Maine. We're
Right, but-
drastically understaffed per road.
but-
I know most people wouldn't believe
Right,
that.
but for fire, for police, for like, and thinking about, especially with the new law that's going into place, as we consider what might end up being some sort of impact fee or some sort of development fee, thinking about if we have baseline numbers of what it takes right now to service the residents of York, if there is a bump in development, how to appropriately appropriately develop fees that would help us cover, at least for the first year of, 70 new ADUs being, or whatever, being built.
Anticipate the other
Exactly.
expenses and
Exactly,
costs that
because
would go along with it.
it seems, what I keep hearing is that the spending is disproportionate to the, what our population is, right? And I'm not sure if that's true or not, but I think if we had some benchmarks to say, at this point, this is when we change then we add police officers. At this point, this is when we go to another full-time firefighter. At this point, so that we have that information ahead of time, so that when we are budgeting and when we're looking at fees and when we're looking at if there's a department consolidation, like how much of those fees can we charge to those new opportunities, and where can they spread throughout the municipal government, not just necessarily to code or to planning.
Planning and code is one of the toughest ones for those type of benchmarking, just because of the function that they do. A lot of the things you mentioned are very easy to do, so I could, in a day, probably develop some of the policing per dollar of valuation, policing per capita numbers, which they exist and they're out there and they're publicly accessible, and I think we fall pretty good in those, not high, not low, and I've looked at some of those, police officers per capita, and then we're gonna look at police officers per property valuation too, because they're kind of two different property and violent crime, right? You've got two different levels of protection. Fire per valuation, fire dollars per valuation, extremely low.
I think the trend is we're hearing a call for revenue, right? And if revenue can be tied to a benchmark based on property values, based on population, based on whatever other important factors there are, it seems like we should be considering some of those as we develop future budgets, so that if we can legally charge impact fees, so that we can defend those changes in our ordinances and in the fee structure, knowing that we have these benchmarks in place to say, well, yeah, actually this, increase in development actually did make us have to shift our, name 3 departments, and this is the cost associated with it, and so this is how we're gonna break that down into fees.
Biggest, foremost common impact fees that you'll see, water, sewer, which they already do, which is good, whether or not that's right or not. The rates they charge, that's for them and their boards and voters, which are different than the towns, the constituents to figure out. Roads, so highway is a big one that is frequently glossed over or not paid attention to by municipalities. I think we have some opportunity there. The probably single biggest one is schools. We're in a unique position with schools. I think we don't need to belabor it, but where we'd actually probably welcome more students as opposed to, so that's a strikeout. But then you get into the less significant ones, and I think you're hitting on all of them. Police, fire, code, yep.
Do we do any, I was thinking as you were talking through those, about the schools, we've talked a lot about declining enrollment being forecasted to continue on the schools. But on the other side, do we do any forecasting just on development growth, especially with, this new law that is going into effect and what that might do? Just kind of going along the lines of how do we forecast, even keeping services the same, but increasing capacity if that's going to be growing over time?
We can't even, so to Peter's point, like, yes, it sounds great on paper, and yes, I'm forecasting a lot of growth, but also if there's a recession and let's say the interest rates go
macroeconomic
through the roof
factors, right.
even worse than they currently are, or something, which is going to be like CD, for example, the York Beach Greenway District. Not a lot of people are taking advantage of that, and it's almost the same gosh darn thing. And it's been sitting there for a year. Nobody's taking advantage of it.
I mean, the loosened
Rules. Yep, it's
restrictions
like, it's a lot more developed, you can develop more over there. And they haven't taken advantage, so I could be incredibly wrong. And next year we'll be sitting
No, I
here
think-
going, hey, Harry, by the way,
I think
remember that time?
the
you
hard
said
answer to your question, Dylan would, if you ask him that question when he comes up, he would probably tell you, hey, you can easily calculate the total build-out. They'd call that a build-out analysis, right? Of what can actually get, what's on the ground and how much more can we add and what would that do in terms of water and sewer? But that doesn't, as we're seeing, LD 1829 is only the newest of the kind of housing laws. We had one a couple of years ago. Oh, it's going to change the face of housing. We're going to have ADUs everywhere.
2003, yeah.
didn't change any development patterns for what Harry's seeing. It was kind of like flatline. Maybe things would have fallen and now they're going up, I don't know. But I think the cost of money, probably the Fed interest rate probably has more of an effect on what gets built here than people will shoehorn things into lots that don't make sense if money is cheap and if capital is out there or if demand is there. We know the demand's there. I got to imagine the strangle is the cost of building and the cost of money right now, so.
Like 2 weeks ago when the Fed
But it's a
dipped
good-
for a hot minute, there was 1 million loans taken out. So yeah, it's there. The demand is there. It's just when will it happen?
People are waiting for the
It's an important
conditions.
question. We can forecast the potential impact, but what's actually likely to happen,
Yep. Okay.
you get me a crystal ball, I won't be working this job
No,
anymore.
no,
I can
no.
predict what the interest
all of
rate's
us.
gonna do, so.
Any other questions on the operating budget, or we can jump quickly to the one capital item? All right, so looks like just one vehicle, is that
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yep. So one vehicle.
And is
That's
that,
it.
Do we know how this is being funded?
yeah, is that out of operating or? Okay, this is capital paid from operating.
Yep. So I was planning to replace the black Ford Focus. It's older and 68,000, 70,000 miles. I did get some pushback at a preliminary meeting about that, but I was just trying to figure out a way to responsibly spend the money. So if there was a recession, that vehicle would last a lot longer if it wasn't 20 years old when the recession hit versus whatever. So that's my logic
So
there.
still on the fence of whether that ends up in, I think that's in 28 now, right?
Yeah, I might have gotten kicked out. So.
Harry's original request was for 27, that might be moving to 28, or it
The
might have
fif-
already moved.
The
2000.
2015?
Yeah.
Ford Escape.
Yeah, I would just generally, code and beyond, like to see the mileage replacement threshold just be higher, like generally for all cars, like, you know,
You were
maybe
part of
not.
that discussion, I think,
Yeah,
earlier this year.
I
right? Yeah.
really struggle with this one. Like, it's really hard as a voter who doesn't replace a car at 80,000 miles or like 280,000 miles, right? Like, you know, like I'm driving my cars. I know that's not practical for like a work vehicle, but there are a lot of frugal taxpayers with vehicles, and I just think the thresholds are way too low. I mean,
It's also, it's 10 years old, right? Is that the one I'm trying to replace?
It's
Yeah,
11.
it's still fine, whatever. Anyway, the point being that
It'll be 12.
know.
it's gonna be fine. I agree with you. Practically speaking, I could probably run that a lot longer, fine.
Would there be my only other question would be, since obviously you have fees and revenue to cover it, so it's not an impact to the taxpayer, is there a use, and we obviously haven't met with the schools yet, or is there a use for a Ford Escape in decent condition
Oh, yeah.
elsewhere in the town or schools that we can then defer cost somewhere else?
And I think we usually, I haven't turned one in yet, so I don't know.
On the town side, we look hard at before, whenever anyone's looking for like a secondary vehicle or something to replace, like if something dies, we look at everything from public works to police to code to fire, who's rolling something out that is
I would
in
assume it goes
serviceable
somewhere.
condition in the next 2 years and maybe moving up one of those purchases instead of buying, like let's say that Harry's 2021 or 2016 or something that's not on the block to be replaced right now, something dies mid-cycle, we're not gonna probably move forward with a new replacement. We'll look to see if something can be repurposed out of replacement stock first, so that happens. We don't do that with the school. I know generally they buy their own purpose-made, like, passenger vehicles and run them for, I know, let me rephrase that. I guess their focus is on passenger-made vehicles, passenger-specific vehicles, as opposed to we're pushing them to buy smaller, lighter vehicles for like two-person use or one-person use more than,
Yeah, and I think that's a
Passenger
really interesting potential. I think it's a great idea to bring up, Courtney, because we know that there are special ed runs that are for one child, that are for out-of-state.
And very high mileage vehicles.
Very.
I'm looking
Yeah.
for their schedule. I mean, some of
But
the
it's
school
it's ridiculous.
But even thinking about the fact that they're going in a van instead of in a
Ford Escape.
passenger car.
right, instead of an Ford Escape.
Right, so, you know, it would be an interesting thing to consider.
I think we're committed to trying to keep this one until the wheels fall off.
Yeah.
Based on some of the comment received earlier,
Maybe
but
not
if,
till the
yeah, if
wheels
there's
fall off,
low.
but you know, just a little bit more life.
I'm also
Well,
trying
that
to,
would still be keeping
but
it, I guess
honestly,
is
we-
the point,
We
right?
care less if the wheels fall off if it's somebody in it and it's not full of kids that are,
Let's not put special
if
ed
it's
kids
driving
in
at
a
20
car.
miles an hour down York Street, I don't care if it gets a flat or if something, the taillight goes out and has to be replaced. Probably if it's in Massachusetts transporting 7 kids, we should have a,
That's
Wouldn't look very good on
Standard.
me.
Much higher
Yeah,
standard.
can I just,
But we
On the
actually
highway,
have,
for
like,
example,
really
yeah.
high
Can you imagine donating that and being like, code did this?
I know.
Ridiculous, yeah.
so just to read the mileage on some of the school vehicles. Vehicle number 9 is at 187,000 miles.
It's amazing.
Which is a Ford Expedition.
Transporting students.
And vehicle number
Special ed
8
students.
is at 177,000 miles, which is a Ford Expedition. So I guess
That's an expedition though, that's probably got a decent. engine.
sometimes it's just one
No, not at all.
one
Yeah.
student.
I'm
and
just
it's
guesstimating.
Right.
high
Do they
gas
want to
mileage.
trade? They can call us up. We'll,
Yes, this is
Actually,
what I'm
in all
suggesting,
seriousness-
right? Like,
in all
I actually
seriousness.
think this might make sense
good
to maybe go forward with the purchase with the code fees that are of no impact to the taxpayers and actually reallocate the Ford
If I can
Escape.
help out, obviously, I will do that. But I also want to point out, I'm
Or
trying to make the
actually, I was
vehicles less
going-
gas dependent too.
Yeah,
Hold
I
on,
saw
Harry.
that, which I
Hybrid or
appreciate,
electric.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was going one step cheaper. I was actually going to have Harry take the 177,000 mile Ford Expedition.
Yeah.
I actually, you laugh, but believe it or
Right.
not,
Maybe
that's
that's
not
not,
a
he doesn't
bad
like
Harry
it
idea.
wants
anymore.
it.
but,
Bonus
don't
points for
mind that,
Harry
though.
if he
It's
takes
Not
the.
a bad
It
idea.
works on gas, but it'd be better for off.
What is the
back room.
process to change the ordinance, though? Because this whole conversation
this is silly.
isn't sitting well with me, and I appreciate the work that you do. This is no referendum on your department and the revenue generated, but the fact that we're hearing what we are from the voters regarding their tax dollars and just the way that their taxes are going up and up and up, and yet we're here with you, and it's a bit of abundance of riches, and you're generating the money, but like you're looking for ways to creatively spend it, and it's just like
Right,
that
no, yeah.
dichotomy of,
Exactly.
one versus the other. And I'm not saying that we need to fleece the people that are looking to build in our town and charge them more than fair market rate, but there's got to be a way to hit equilibrium here. Like, if you need a new car, have it. But the fact that you're, preemptively or buying cars earlier than you need to so that you're spending the money, especially now, like with the
Exactly.
times that we're in and everything that's going on, it just seems backwards to me. And if changing the ordinance is the way to right the ship, I don't really know the path forward in that regards, but just sitting here now and, we've been listening to people that are really hard pressed for it, yet we've got one department, and good on you, but.
The money's tied up.
It's
Right.
one,
It's
it's one line at the bottom of the
encumbered or
ordinance.
whatever you wanna
Tied
call
up
it.
But it's just
of our
because of
own
an
doing.
ordinance,
And I'm
right?
not saying that we
can be
need to go
changed.
spend
I'd
it
have to change the ordinance.
across the board and spend it freely, but just that,
I mean, we can't treat that like general fund money for the school, for the town either.
Right.
So
No,
we're,
no, no.
we're really limited on those
Within
revenues, what
limits,
they
of
can be
course.
but
used for.
it
We
just,
I asked that too,
just
by
seems
the way.
backwards, yes.
But however, in terms of disposition policy, Harry and I can get very creative with your suggestion and
Absolutely.
have some conversations maybe.
I've been wanting to
What
change that
exactly
ordinance for a
is the
while.
thing? Is it a town ordinance that can be?
It's
voted
a
on?
supplemental
What is it?
building ordinance, and under the supplemental building ordinance, it says where the fees, the funding goes, and what the intention of the ordinance is. It was last updated in like 2012 or something.
Right, but
so
the,
it's-
but the fee, the fact that it's a fee that's charged for development, it is considered under law. It's not an impact fee like under the statute, but it's considered with the same thing. It has to be reasonably tied. And if you don't use it for the expenses that it's reasonably tied to the cost of the town to do so, you're actually supposed to send it back to contractors or whoever, homeowners, whoever pays those fees. So that's why we're trying to spend it, so we don't have to lower, because the other alternative is not that we could take it and donate it or use it for school purposes, which we can't, but we would actually have to reduce our permitting fees if we're not able to find, at our current rate, ways to spend it, so.
And then the thing is, so that would be a vote also.
It
so-
doesn't necessarily apply to low-value things that, for example, Harry uses up and throws away. They can be rotated out into, at a much reduced cost. Yep.
Right.
I also don't want to be frivolous with it either. I mean, if it was 100% my decision, I was just like, okay, whatever, I'd let it build up, but what's that benefit then? Like,
Yeah,
That's-
exactly. There's not.
my thought is like, I'm self-employed, so just,
And I'm not saying for a second that you're being frivolous with it, but it's just, it's,
I get you though. Yeah.
crazy to me that this is one conversation when everybody else is, really hard up for money.
We have had
For things that
conversations
really are
recently about
important. I
instead
mean-
of
Kinda why I threw it
spending
out
as
there.
much time and effort driving gas vehicles if they're employees that would like to take alternative transportation as part of the job too, so we didn't have to have such a large fleet. Sounds goofy, but, I I know in the past, town employees have utilized scooters in the summertime and to keep with the vibe, because a lot of people.
All weekend
I'm
about
just
the
saying, a
scooter
lot of people some in the room used to prefer riding around in a scooter, but then they didn't want to put a helmet on for our workers' comp claim, so
Someone
maybe the
is being
scooter
called
might
out.
come back if someone puts it
I
at
think I've had a
drastically
visit
reduced
from the
taxpayer
scooter.
cost. Instead of 50 cents a mile, you're talking like 5 cents a mile. For driving one of their 75 cents a mile, it's like 7 cents a mile, so. Or maybe, e-bikes or something like that, or that kind of stuff, so. Just looking at,
The lifeguards roll in on some scooters sometimes.
yeah, looking at some options, and we're talking about those kind of low-speed local traffic, not, again, not going out on 95
going to 95.
not on 95 on a 50cc scooter doing
Please don't.
inspections. We're talking about if Harry's driving from, Shore Road to the town hall or something like that at 25 miles an hour in the summer.
Code gang.
Does it make sense to get to the question of an expedition, would it make sense for him to be driving an expedition around stop-and-go traffic in the summer or
No.
an
I was-
electric car, so.
The expedition, though, I was thinking like mountain, or once in a while it gets driven.
I'm envisioning town of York kind of logoed helmets, and the whole thing. But with that, anything else on,
I have a bunch of stipulations about that, but anyway.
anything else on code for tonight?
No, thank you.
I feel like I made it worse by coming up here. but
We always have a lively conversation,
always say
so we
that, Harry,
appreciate you
every
coming,
year.
Harry.
All right, am I good, though?
I think so.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate you all.
You did better, Harry, but somehow the conversation went
Yeah.
worse. I don't know how that's possible, so. It got more complicated, I should say.
If it's okay with everyone, we're going to take a 5-minute quick bio break before we move on, and then planning will be up next. Is that all right? So we'll pause the mics for 5 minutes.
Can we pause the?
Peter, oh,
Can you kill the audio?
just for a moment.
Thanks.
Thank you. We are ready to start again. We are live. Thank you so much for the quick break. All right, we are going to move on to planning. So we're in tab 6 for everybody who's not there yet.
Hi, good evening. Dylan Smith, Director of Planning. I just want to first start off by apologizing in my narratives. I'll be happy to talk about anything you guys want to talk about, but I did put on something, continuing to work on feasibility for solar on witchcraft, which certainly adds energy to potions and magic, but I think
Curious about that.
this is me trying to do my best Harry Norton impersonation. So anyway.
Wow.
I'm also guessing,
He's not even here.
Oh, he's
I
talking
know.
to-
Is he?
Oh, he
That
left.
was on his way back.
You're talking way too slowly.
That's right. So I apologize for
I'm guessing
that.
that Lynn caught you in the back with the witchcraft comment, huh? That was on her list of edits. So should note then our town clerk is also us, but she saw the witchcraft about a month ago. She asked if you were up to something. Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
So, I
You
don't
never know. We do a
Tune
lot
in,
of,
Lynn, and find out. So.
we deal with a lot of potions and magic and planning. So anyway,
Harry Potter action.
back to the situation at hand. I think you did quite a bit of talking about planning just a second ago, actually. And I'll be happy to follow up with any of those comments that you guys were discussing, or if you have any further questions. Certainly, if you look at build-outs and projected population growth or housing growth, I invite you please to look at the comprehensive plan. There's discussions there are very good discussions within that plan that was approved in 2022, using census data, building permit data, which makes projections of growth and development in town. So please take a look at that, housing population sections, all good information there. Regarding proposed budgets, that was discussed as well, looking at moving some of the building permit fees into the planning sphere per se, which there is clearly a nexus with doing planning board application reviews, site plan subdivision reviews, as well as doing ordinance work, of which the code enforcement office, their directives is to enforce the codes, right? Of which the planning office writes the codes, facilitates and writes the codes, writes the plans, writes the codes, the laws, and they implement them. So clearly there's a nexus there with that work and utilizing those fees to take a portion of that. It was also mentioned before, we're looking at upping our planning board application fees. That's done through the site plan and subdivision regulation process. In the past, we've used fees from that account to cover staffing on the planning side as well. So I think we're looking at fees in general. I know that is a big discussion point, and bringing up the town of York's fees with not only surrounding towns. When you look at our application fees for subdivision site plan, we are far lower than our surrounding communities, not by a long shot. So we're upping our fees to both look at inflation as well as to bring us in line, not to be the highest by any means, but bring us in line
Are
with
there
surrounding
similar
communities.
restrictions on to how your fees can be spent?
Well, we've, as a regulation of which the voters granted the planning board authority to develop regulations in the zoning ordinance, so his vote and authority was granted to the planning board to look at developing site sub-regulations as well as application fees within those site sub-regulations. We see it as yes, so looking at the regulations and making changes within those to say direct fees to planning activity seems like an appropriate nexus in my conversations with the town attorney. Absolutely. It's just the verbiage and wording has to be pretty clear, of which we feel like it is at this point. So looking at the supplemental building ordinance, of which I played a part in amending that ordinance a couple times, it's just the verbiage they have to, change and send to the voters. But it's the policymakers and the select board that kind of look at that and hold the hearings, of which send it to the voters. So hopefully, that can be pretty straightforward and whatever happens.
On those fees, can you just give a quick example of what is our fee today compared to surrounding towns? How far below are we?
Boy, I wish I brought that fee. I really can't without looking at the list. It's online right now under the planning board, but you know, we did comparisons with communities, and we were at the bottom. I do, and I'm sorry, I don't want to give you an example. on
Are the ordinances pretty similar across towns?
No, all ordinances
So
is.
how do you really compare apples to apples with the fees if the ordinances are all different?
You mean ordinance as far as town zoning ordinances?
Yeah, and
Yeah, they're
planning, all of that.
all cities, towns have a total different method of how they enact or regulate building in different areas, right? And this
So do
town
the-
certainly
Do the
is.
fees then have the fees are based on the ordinances, right? They're relative to what the laws are.
Well, the fees are basically developed based on the process of doing growth and development within a community. So I'd say they can differ widely based on those requirements.
Right.
And our requirements are fairly stringent and, you know, complex, but I would say Kittery's are as well, and Wells and all these other communities that have far higher fees than what we have. So, you know, I think we're just trying to bring our fees up in line with surrounding communities as well as cost of doing business. We haven't touched our fees since 2005. So
Yeah.
just looking at rate of inflation, that's pretty significant if you just based a fee increase off rate of inflation. So 2005, both there's a selectmen's policy as it relates to fees, from telecommunications, wireless facilities to everything else that hasn't been touched since 2005. So the site subregs, we can touch those on the planning board level easier than I think than the select board can touch theirs or go through that, what can be a political process for doing that.
How many, not to get too far off topic, but that policy that you just referenced that the select board has, and maybe this is a Peter question for you, how many other fees would be captured or covered rather in that particular ordinance?
And how out of date?
So you have Route 1,
Yeah,
you
it's right from
have,
2000.
yeah, you have a number of different fees that are listed within that policy. If I could probably try to search for it in here.
What's the name of that policy again?
It's the select board's fee policy, and it's authorized through the zoning ordinance.
Just maybe as a follow-up, if it's
Yeah.
outside the specific realm of planning, I'd be curious to understand that and if that's something that needs to be updated.
It's something that we've talked about in the past, but it's something that I think in the past with the select board, when Steve was the town manager and stuff like that, but it's something that we just wasn't something that was.
And there's no escalator built into any of our?
No.
Like, how are we not, I guess where I'm stuck is, how are we not writing a policy where there's just a normal COLA adjustment on fees?
Generally can't do that. You have to vote on a set number for any government rates established.
Can you do a 3% fixed escalator? You can't do any escalation.
Or
It'll
at
have to be
least have a
adopted every
schedule of
time that
review,
you do it.
like-
So for example, there are things that are, my recommendation is always take things out of voter-approved ordinances and put them into a document that can be amended on a regular basis, but you still have an amendment process anytime you change it. So
Okay.
even if you have, even if you say the goal is to do that, there still has to be an action that adjusts those rates. It can be challenged if you don't. So it's a common question. We get in a lot of different,
Yeah.
why can't it say just whatever the, whatever the current building code is what the town building, whatever the state adopted building code is, like you actually have to go and adopt it each time that changes, and people get annoyed by making those changes all the time, so Dylan can walk you through that.
Just feels like maybe we dust it off after 20 years.
It's been a long time, and right, so
Every
that's why the
five,
planning board,
5 is 20 years
that's
ago.
why the planning board is, that's why the planning board is going through that, and went through that analysis
Yeah.
with the subdivision and site plan reviews. And
Thank you.
that's what we've done as far as increasing those fees to not be the highest in the region, but to look at inflation as well as what other towns are doing, so. Our second public hearing is this Thursday on those changes, and hopefully that will be approved soon.
So is that reflected in the 150,000?
That is coming out of the building permit fees, as Peter was talking about before.
Okay.
And I think that fee account right now probably can't reach those levels right now.
So
of
where are
yet.
your fees referenced in the budget?
Those fees aren't in here.
They're in the revenues?
They're reserves, so they're not operating budget expenses.
Can you say more?
They're reserves, special revenue fees, the way they've been set up, so they're outside of, they're not taxpayer dollars, so they're not included in this budget.
Okay.
Much like,
Couldn't we argue the same for Harry's budget?
Right, yeah, that's.
Yep. Yes.
except Harry pulls them into his budget.
Okay.
Planning does not.
Why?
There's not much in that account. After multiple years of collecting, there's like, I think under $50,000 in there, right, Dylan?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. We've utilized that budget before for covering staff time in years gone past, I believe.
I think it's
At one
been
point,
used
and-
for administrative help, patients' help.
Yep, storage fees too, planning documents as
Yeah,
well.
a little bit of that.
So that's outside of the budgeting process.
Right, it's not taxpayer dollars, so that's the
right.
way it's structured that way.
And that's a reserve fund for planning.
Just for planning.
The way it's written up now. Yep.
That's also an ordinance, like, it's written that way.
Because the voters told us to do it that way.
Right.
That's- Or somebody proposed and the
Authorized
voters said, do it that way.
In 2001, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's
Or whatever, yeah, I'm just joking.
Probably before 2005.
Yeah, yeah,
so.
okay.
So then if the fees are increasing, I don't know what the average increase is.
So I found the document, I can give you some samples.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious, so with your increase in fees, how much are we then expecting that account to increase?
It's all based on what subdivision site plans come in.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just
So-
saying, like, if you look at a trend line, are we increasing fees by 30% or?
Right, and we dealt with processed around 24 applications, varied from site plan amendment to subdivisions or site plans. Boy, I dare not give what that amount could be.
So I think also you got to keep in mind the scope. You're talking thousands in the code enforcement department versus tens in his. So it's like an
Yeah.
order of 100 magnitude probably.
Yeah, we're not looking at significant gains on that much.
Okay.
But certainly stuff to help the department and do planning studies and stuff like that that we need to do in town that we might not ask the voters to, fund. Such as we've talked about build-out studies, and that's part of a capital plan that you saw. It's nothing this year, but it's next year as proposed rezoning. Comprehensive plan calls for comprehensive rezoning of the town, LD 1829. Yes, staff's looking at this right now, and we're trying to come up with creative solutions for how we should zone for it, specifically in our growth areas and where water and sewer are. This would help provide, doing what? Design standards, design guidelines in areas. Well, we have to hire an architect to draft what these standards and guidelines might look like. So it definitely supplements staff in helping us do long-range planning and planning studies, parking studies, transportation studies, Route 1 corridor study, which was also a capital that we're currently working on. It helps us do these things.
So it's it's not an enterprise account.
Nope, it's a special revenue account. It's a different designation type of an account. I can certainly give you the balance. It's not much that's gone on in there
Yeah.
in my time here. Be happy to
It's
do
just
that.
interesting, the incongruence between planning and code.
Yeah, there's been talk every year about increasing planning fees, and I'm not familiar with the process.
Well, and I'm not even talking about increasing the
Just the
fees.
budgeting
I'm
Well,
talking
you would
about the
have to increase them in order to bring them into the operating budget, or they'd be dissolved in a year. You know, they're so small comparatively.
Right.
Okay,
So the difference is Harry's generating revenue that can pay for $1 million budget
sure.
each year and have substantial amount left over. It's in the tens of thousands.
Sure,
Yeah.
but even still, if you have $50,000 in there now, I don't know what goes in every year. If it's 10 grand a year in revenue, no.
Not that much.
Couple.
Few $100s.
Okay,
Yeah.
so very, very small. I think that's what's hard. We just don't see that anywhere, so it's really hard to compare the scale.
Yeah.
Well, and then also after hearing a department that is self-supported through fees, and then you won't get there ever.
No, we won't.
You know,
So,
so it's-
for example, look at Woodstone, right? That subdivision development of 52 lot subdivision you're looking at, and that's even more. So take, for example, a 52 lot subdivision, a current, we'd get from application fees, 11,250, which puts us below Kennybunk, Port, Falmouth, Sanford, Algonquit, Berwick. We're below all those. We're, you know, right around South Portland. But what we're proposing is that now would go up to, say, 18,000, which still puts us like in the top, you know, 4 towns.
But that, I mean, obviously, we're not doing large subdivisions on the regular, I don't think, but that 18,000 we're saying is going into this revenue, this special revenue account. Mechanically, I'm just trying to understand mechanically where
Yeah,
the dollars
those,
are going.
that's not the dollars that we're seeing increasing in there. Let me do some research, let me lay it out for you. It's very small,
Yeah.
very small
Very
dollars.
small right now. That's if we get a 52, that's a big,
Yeah, not
sizable. We're not seeing that.
And that's why it was kind of set up to do the studies that he's talking about. If we see a huge budget increase, we can pay for patients' time to do minutes out of it. There was a $3,000 bill that came out of it one year for rent at the water district when we had the old town hall. We didn't have our own storage. There was a percentage of LiDAR aerial
Yeah, and
fees that
I
were
think
paid
this
out
is
of
great
there.
examples, but the point is that it's not a transparent process because
so much of
those expenses aren't going through the operating budget.
Because of the way the ordinance is set up.
Right, because it's not an operating budget
We're
account.
following the
it's a-
rules that are in place
Right.
for us to follow.
Oh, yeah, of course, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay.
Just keep finding all
Dylan,
these
what are the
complicated
growth
topics.
areas in the town? Is there a
there's-
little map for whether,
Sure, yeah, so, and you can go on to our town's GIS and you can click on what the growth area is, but it's between the 2 rivers, Cape Nettic and York River and 95,
What determined that?
east of that. What determined that?
Yeah.
Typically, well, through the comprehensive planning process and getting input from the public through surveys and
So
public
that's a designation
information.
within the comprehensive plan,
Yep.
is what that is.
Yeah,
okay.
as well as a transition area that you'll look at. I'll also say this to Christina, there's, the growth area does extend on, to the Kittery town line as well, all parcels that are along Route 1. So it did increase from the old comp plan to include parcels south of York River on Route 1.
okay.
So it basically, you look at where utilities are. Water and sewer are the big ones where you'd want to focus growth around where water and sewer is. And the idea is not to promote sprawl into your kind of more your rural residential areas. Keep it here, don't go out, which ultimately will end up costing the community more money for services.
Absolutely.
You know, traffic impact, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And plus impact on just your quality of life, so that's kind of where the growth area
could
is
see
right
that
now. Water and
really-
sewer.
I could see that really affecting the traffic when you just said that.
If you,
Traffic area, I mean, with growth along Route 1.
yeah, right, yeah, the growth along
another-
Route 1 as far as between the 2 rivers, you try to keep it in there, and sewer doesn't go too far into the Cape Nettic Village area on Route 1, although that's looked at as, in the comp plan, as a transition area where you'd maybe see, you have water in that, but you don't have sewer yet.
Okay.
So you kind of look at that area as a transition, a unique village setting. If you drive on Route 1, you go through Cape Nettic, what Cape Nettic Village we used to
Village,
call,
right.
right? But where so I think there's opportunity there for potential density in the future, but not now. The focus really is to look at areas around the Route 1-3 area where you have Hannaford and larger developments, the villages. Ideally, you want to stay out of areas where you're going to get sea level rise and whatnot, storm surge, natural hazards, stay out of those areas. But, we're looking at this bill, LD 1829, impacts on, right, the density impacts, right, what people can and can't do with their properties now, which significantly increases density allowances. What will happen, we'll see, right? Because the cost of building and whatnot is sky high. So, it's all a matter of, proportions. If I can get 50 units on a tiny little lot, then that's a
Right.
little different than 4.
And
So
that's already passed, huh?
it's passed. This doesn't go into effect until July 1st of 2027 for this community. So we'll be looking at zoning amendments and whatnot for May of 2027. So next May.
You're gonna have a busy year.
Yeah.
We do. We've got to evaluate this and how it, it could have significant impact. We want to look at a build-out analysis. We've been working with sewer and water, which has their own concerns, right? Sustainability concerns, capacity concerns.
That's right.
They play an important role in what happens with growth and development in this community. And so if we've got to really talk to them, and they want us to do a build-out, and they're going to work with us to do a build-out analysis of what are maximum build-outs that we're looking in this area where there's existing sewer and water or future reasonable expansions of sewer and water,
We heard a lot about sewer last year, but we haven't heard anything really this year around sewer expansion. Just curious, it might not be a direct question to you, but
right,
hasn't come up.
The one is the project they're currently working on right now, which is Donica. And
Right,
on
that was approved and that.
over into where Anthony's is, right? And that's as far as we've really talked about the
All they've got
sewer
on
expansion.
the tap for expansion in the near future.
I think my conversations with Phil over at York Sewer has really been, they'll listen to if people want to tie in and expand, but I don't think there's major expansion projects in their horizon right now as they're looking at their plant and their needs and the impacts that they're going to potentially face from climate change and whatnot moving forward. So I think there's a lot of things they have to look
They're
at.
not soliciting expansion, but if somebody comes to them with a proposal,
Yeah, if a neighborhood, couple houses want to tie in, they'll allow for that to occur, but. Anyway, yes, so back to anything I can answer about the budget or.
You had just at the top, obviously, of the narrative, we asked about initiatives that were funded previously. The Route 1 corridor study, you mentioned firm chosen, work underway. Can you remind me, what was the amount in the budget for that, or how was that funded, and kind of what's the?
The Route 1 corridor study, so
Yeah,
that was.
it's a shared.
It was a shared expense through state, federal, local. And do you remember offhand the local match amount on that? Was it
$80,000, third.
Yep, 80. So $240,000 project, which the town is 80. And right now we're working with our consultants and a regional planning commission and DOT and the feds on that project right now.
So that's just starting, or the work has just started?
Yeah,
When does
late
that
summer,
finish?
late summer in their data collection mode, so collecting all the data from DOT and evaluating. I have actually a meeting with them next week to talk about the comp plan, growth projections, economic development opportunity, all those things. So they'll be doing reach out into the community and doing workshops. That's part of the scope of work that they're hired to do. So stay tuned for those workshops and working with the public and understanding what the concerns are. Obviously, traffic safety, all that, which has certainly gotten, I'd say, worse through the years. So hopefully we can come up with a good engineered design for what the future of Route 1 corridor looks like. And this goes from, again, Mountain Road basically to the Kittery Town Line. Those are the parameters of the scope.
Oh, wow.
It's a long stretch.
Long stretch, and they differ, right? It kind of differs in what that looks like or what it could look like with density, growth, and development. What you might want it to look like as you're coming off the spur and all the uses, and we obviously see all the traffic, potential issues with coming out of, say, Anthony's and going left in the summer. You just don't do it. So, or Eldridge or whatnot. So, looking at access management controls and center medians and, interesting redesign, I'd say.
So when do you expect to get the results? When does that study finish, and when does the town get?
Next November, I believe.
Okay.
So November of 26, I think it wraps up.
That is such a good outcome
Yeah.
from that whole sewer.
And that was all sewer, right? The sewer discussions
by the
that
whole thing.
really was like, well, okay, I'll raise you 50,000 if we redo Route 1 type
Yeah.
of thing. It's like, well, hold on a sec, you know? Let's see what happens. Yeah.
All right, should we get to other questions in the operating budget? Anything else?
I think my only question was, last year you came to us with some administrative strife, and I'm just wondering how that's
So,
going.
well, I think as you've heard from the public and people looking at fees, looking at ways, I think the idea is to not look at administrative help at this point to do this, you know? I think it will always, I'll keep circling back to that, and maybe there's shared help that can be achieved at some point. At this point, we're just kind of looking at status quo. I think you see that in my budget, it's basically status quo. I'm not proposing any significant increases at all, and we're pulling money from a different source to help offset some of the, you know, work that is done within the department. So at this point, not proposing, you know, admin help, although it'd be a nice thing to have to help deal with some of the things that I've outlined in my narrative, from filing to website work to billing that Wendy and her crew's been doing a good job in assisting with and helping us do that. So I think we've had good collaboration on that front, but it, you know, I think, you know, you have more help, you can do more things. That's kind of how I look at it.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, as Peter mentioned, how the automation in some of the departments ends up kind of shaking out over the next couple of years, and how that may release some resources.
Yeah, looking at OpenGov, which Harry has talked about, we're looking at that too, of which Kittery utilizes that within their plan, as well as City of Portsmouth, and seeing how it, you know, it's good and bad, I think, what I'm hearing from some of, you know, what their experiences have been with that, and how it fits in with the town of York structure, which is an older structure, which takes a while to, you know, as we all know here, change things don't come real quick. So I think, you know, incorporating that structure, we've got to evaluate that. We've got to look at our codes going to E360, you know, going to a more efficient-based ordinance and regulation, as well as applicant interface. So I think we'll be doing that as we go forward. I look forward to seeing how that goes.
One just specific line item question. Obviously, your benefits line went up very significantly. I'm assuming, is that just because of an enrollment change? Does anybody know? Okay.
Yep.
Peter's nodding. So. All right.
Yeah,
From an individual to family, or somebody who wasn't taking benefits before to taking it
there's
to a
only
drive.
like 12 combinations of changes that could happen in Dylan's department because of the size, so I can't comment further on it.
Yep,
or else
no,
I'd be
I'm
giving
not
something
looking for
away, but
individual, information.
when you've got
just-
small 2 or 3 person departments, I think Wendy has one too. When you've got a benefit change, it's pretty, and to the negative too, we have people that roll off plans or go on to spouses plans, and you see those too, where it's like a pretty drastic change in a small department, or a new hire and they have a different plan level than
Yeah.
they had before, or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's just a significant dollar number as well, is in addition to the percentage, which is why I asked, so.
Yep,
Okay.
good read.
Thank you.
Maybe my last question on contracts is we have an unknown
Yeah, I saw that.
$9,000 contract.
Oh, yes, so what, and I've kind of kept that as a standard flat, but we look at that to supplement, say, grant matching or use for, like, for example, the LD 1829 and supplementing the work done by utilizing those fees, or for going, say, for a build-out analysis and utilizing a portion of that line item for, say, that work to be done. Or, for example, when we were doing short-term rentals, there was going to be a mail-out to, I think we were gonna do a survey, of which we were gonna utilize $6,000 to do a survey on short-term rentals and what that means, but it didn't go forward right now, so that's still in play. So I utilize that to do, you know, kind of directives from maybe the select board or planning board to do work activity or to match other initiatives.
that's pretty common. Studies,
Yeah.
you know, pretty common for a planning department to get tasked mid-year with working with an outside contractor to research something. That number is actually pretty low.
Yeah, I'd say, you know.
Not asking for more money, but like if, in an ideal world, I think the studies line would be, for a town this size,
Yeah.
to have, you
Could
know,
be
that
quite a bit
kind of-
higher, right? Like,
What's that?
I would assume it could be quite a bit higher and probably has been in previous years.
I think we've
budget
stayed
last
pretty,
year is the same.
we stayed pretty flat on that.
At least for the contracts.
Again, knowing I think what we're trying to do is tighten our belts a little bit this year. So I think the idea is to tighten the belt a little bit and looking at a lot of these proposals. And I think, which is totally fine, and or utilizing, if we can, if there's a nexus, right, fees for helping offset some of these costs. This is just a little something as a, you know, to throw our hats in play a little bit for some studies, but I think Peter's absolutely right. It's pretty small. Like if I wanted to get supplemental help to do, say, design standards in the village, it's gonna run way more than $5,000 to get a professional architect to help us do drafting. So there's no doubt about it. But at least this can help if we can couple it with some grant money or something like that. That's great. The budget committee thinks this is too small, then I'll be happy to reevaluate this and
Well,
provide
the
you
select board could
additional.
always use their contingency for one of these items, right?
Got it. No, I think it is great, though. I don't want to skip over the fact that you have $150,000 of revenues in your budget for the first time, which is, looks like through the grants that you've been able to obtain.
Well, yeah, and you know, honestly, there's other, like I said, the state federal matchings through CACs, that's, you know, all things that the planning department works on with the engineer to get additional monies for the town that we bring in. Myself and Dean are voting members on the CAC, I'm the chairman of the CACs committee, the Regional Metropolitan Organization. I could argue that funding could be actually more than that, but I know that's specifically from us submitting for grants, you know, with Taylor and whatnot has been a big help in, you know, going after some of these grants. So yeah, you're looking at some revenue that has been generated through that position as well as through the
And
department.
an overall 20% decrease in your budget.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, building fees, so, and that, right,
So-
and with that, yes.
Yeah.
So that's an example of shifting costs that we were just talking about with Harry, of that's 20% less of that department, or 20% reduction in that department, that mostly attributable to that, right, to some of that revenue from building permits.
I don't, that's what I'm trying to understand, though. This is just the grant money. The building
Yeah, she's just looking at the
fees
grant
are
money that's
outside of
been
this budget,
put in
right?
$150,000 is building permit revenue.
That's from the code.
That's an influx of cash from the code department.
Oh, I thought that was the 125,000 in community action grant
Up to.
funding.
No, that's for projects that we've obtained money to do additional project work.
Right, instead of asking
We've
for-
applied for those
Got it.
for the
Okay.
town
That's not,
money.
that's a
That
avoided
doesn't-
cost, that's not
yeah.
reflected in the.
Got it.
So that's if a
cost
grant
avoidance.
is.
Okay, not a revenue.
Right, so if you're looking at a gross budget, you'd see plus 125, and his bottom line would be 125,000.
Yeah.
Negative 125 at the top and plus. But those are grants accepted by the board to do work or things like that,
Got it.
Yeah.
Still a great job getting the
Projects.
grants. I won't retract my comments, but I was.
We won't, yeah.
Mixing those two, so thank
No, and Dylan's department deserves the $150,000 worth of credit, because that is what we conservatively calculated. I think we could easily attribute to review of code enforcement stuff daily, on a daily basis, and working with code on ordinance amendments 2 to 4 times a year, you know, for a couple weeks at a time with, so those are, you've assigned Brendan to do most of those, right? That they're, to go to the
Right.
planning, when they go to the planning board, right?
Right, yeah, to evaluate where we can, you know,
So for
again,
those-
code office doesn't really deal with policy development. They deal with, implement the policy that we deal with in the policy development field, which is the planning office. So it's good to have that connection there to get their interpretation.
That's everything.
How they're doing
from-
it.
That's everything from Harry's staff saying, hey, there's a problem here, we can't enforce either one of the standard, a new standard, or this does this unintended thing, or the way that we're interpreting this is not the way that you planning staff and the planning board intended it, so that's working with planning staff, is, I think Dylan was saying the polite version of, would you rather have one of the planning staff show up to the planning board and be like, hey, code is looking for these changes for these reasons, these are things aren't going well, or a code enforcement officer like, I can't do this as is. And, so I think, what's the best way to describe it?
Yeah, I think
Planning
we're-
department staff speaks in planning, and, that helps out. So it's kind of dividing those duties, is to not have
I think our skills are different.
also Harry in front of the planning board trying, in his words, to get what the planning board is not gonna listen
Well, and you
to.
generally want, as a best practice, the checks and balances.
Right.
In any type of organization, right, of people who make the decision, set the policy versus enforce it. I mean, that makes sense of
For
having
sure,
that
yeah.
separation.
But direct costs attributable to
Yeah.
requested changes from code, and also review, enforcing subdivision, site plan review requirements, things like that.
Implementation of the code, I think, is a direct nexus for why you'd have it.
So Peter, going back to Harry's budget, where would that $150,000 be represented in Harry's budget?
It's revenue, it's not.
No, in
Yes.
Harry's budget coming
Harry's
up,
budget is the plus, if you look at Harry's budget,
Yeah,
it's not in the operating budget, it's in that
okay.
separate account,
So in
right?
that-
well, no, but it's, if you look at the revenue at the top on Harry plus 1084168, the top line.
Yep,
So that's coming out of the building permit revenue, the same as Dylan's 150,000 is coming out of the building permit.
okay, and then that number is the number that we don't see, the total number of
That's
what's in
right.
that fund.
It's sort of outside of operating budgets and
Sure.
what you all do, not that you can't see it.
Right.
I did just send you, just this minute, a copy of the last audit, which isn't most recent.
Okay.
And if you take a look at the schedules in the back of there, you're gonna see the grants, you're gonna see the reserves, you're gonna see the special revenues and all those things. Just so you know
Awesome.
that
Thank you, Wendy.
they're there, sure.
Appreciate it.
So Dylan, this $9,000 that you talked about a few minutes ago, it sort of covers things that will come up? Is that what
Yeah.
you're saying, that maybe the select board would request or something like that?
Yeah.
What did you spend last year?
Or planning, or this current year that we're in, well,
Yeah.
we were about to spend $6,000 to do a survey, but that got stopped at the last minute by the committee because they didn't want to go forward with it. So at this point, we're still holding on to that little amount, of which we'll put it in, maybe it's doing some other survey survey work, I'll say, or maybe it's doing, like I said, we talked about a build-out analysis. To me, I'm going to be looking at that in this LD 1829 implementation and state requirements, so I'm going to try to get some help doing that. Or it could be, I got to work it out with the planning board and the type of work they want to do for the comprehensive plan implementation, or climate action plan implementation. Maybe that's like I said, you're looking at 9,000, that's not going to get you that far, but maybe it gets us to match something or whatnot, so.
I've been noticing in all the budgets that these contracts are written in the back, which is nice, but we're not seeing what really were the expenditures last year. So we really can't see if that's fair with what was up last year, or,
So they won't align if there's a different vendor
If
or
it's a
something
different
like
vendor,
that?
correct.
Where you see it is in the total contracts line on the summary budget page.
right, which doesn't give us the definition that I'm thinking we probably should see, maybe, because,
Let me give it
What
some
were the
thought. It's not
costs?
going to align line by
Yeah.
line, which is
but then you could say this service was provided by this vendor last year and it cost us this much. Now we're going with this vendor because this one, it wasn't doing a good
I
job or
could put that out
whatever.
to departments
know
to
what I
do,
mean?
to do
Well, that's what I
individually. It's
mean.
hours of work, and
Oh,
I'll ask
no,
you
I'm
to
not
try to
asking you to
figure
do it for
out a way
everybody,
to get
Wendy,
there,
but-
for
But I wonder
sure.
if we just print last year's budget contract lines.
And then you
And-
can try
and
to
then-
align them yourself.
Yes, yeah.
Sure,
Different
if you,
context.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
Then it's not a lot of, there's
Or you
no
have them
extra
in
work,
your
it's
budget
just a lot of
books
labor,
too,
yeah,
but
just-
Right.
from
So,
last year, some of you.
And I apologize, I just thought of what we might be spending money on. Training for form-based code was pretty significant. A portion of it might go to that.
Yeah.
It was like a $15,000. So a portion that we could add seed money, but it would all just go to training, 2-day training, gone.
So-
Yeah.
So the contracts list is for recurring contracts? the one that is in each, so department heads are instructed to put any recurring contracts. We talked about this at the last meeting. Some of them aren't known. So if you look at the planning department contract line, FY '24 was 23,400.
Yeah.
Spent 14,494. Big difference there, like what Dylan was saying.
Yep.
FY '25, 18,100, spent 13,978. FY '26 was 20,000, and FY '27 is proposed at 20,000. So those are things that, they're not recurring contracts, but they're things that might be written mid-year based on, I don't know, the 9,000 unknown number, that doesn't really reflect that. So it's 20, and it's for, there's not a recurring contract that he's gonna have in there. It would be something, the proposal is it would be something that comes up within the next year that you're not currently spending it on.
Right,
So
and I'd say,
contracted services is probably the best way to think of it.
I'd also say working with Peter and how the former town manager kind of looked at allocating planning, like studies and stuff, it's going more into capital programming and capital planning right now than
yeah.
before. Before, nothing, I wasn't ever invited to, for capital planning or anything like that, but, and it seems appropriate that now that, I appreciate it, 'cause it's a good way to look at it too, for like rezoning the town or doing
It's not because
a new comp
it's just
plan.
because the cost of things, if it's, we're trying to, I think Wendy does a good job of catching when things are over 20,000, the 30, 40, 50, so like the Route 1 corridor, I think you're right, that probably wouldn't have gone through the capital planning
Yeah.
process. It would be like, hey, where are we finding the $80,000 from? So, but
Yeah, you'd see
putting
it
that in,
the
anything
line
that's over
item.
20,000, which, right, we should be capitalizing any project that's over 20,000, even if it's a non-budget. So we do that for things that are, we just talked about it with Harry. So the code car is not a operating budget capital expense, but it's capitalizes on the plan. You guys are talking about it.
Yeah.
It's out there publicly if we're making a $20,000 expenditure. But this is for things that are like way less than that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Drafting, getting some legal help on something, drafting something with an architect, you gave a good example, surveyor, things like that.
Yeah, just getting input from
Planning
professionals,
consultant.
which is, their fees have gone way up too, so it goes quick.
All right, any other questions?
I have a general one, not specific to planning, but let's say take your budget for, I'm kind of focused on salaries this year. They're going up a lot. And for 3 FTEs, does that mean we take the total salaries here and divide by 3 and get the average annual salary to be like, what was it, $123,000 per person?
Yep.
Okay, so that's what we can do through all these departments and see what that average rate of pay is. That's what these budgets are
It's
reflecting.
really gonna vary
Yeah,
from one.
not universal, but in
Oh,
this
I know
case, yes.
it's not gonna
that's
be
correct.
across, every department's not gonna be the same, but I can take this for planning and see this is what the average salary is for those 3. And if I went into a different department, I could see 5 FTEs and the total, divide it, you'll get the average salary in that department.
Generally, yes, but don't take that as a do it for every single one, because there might be something, I'm trying to think if there's things that are reflected by part-time or seasonal or that wouldn't be included.
Yeah, Parks and
I
Rec
think-
might have.
yeah, I
but
think-
the FTEs should be
So I would
in
just
there.
be very careful with Parks and Rec based on,
Yeah, I think
don't
that's
do
so
that
much
based on our
seasonal.
last decision or
Right.
discussion, because we had a lot of
Right,
talk about whether there were 2 people in the
Yeah.
conversation about 2 people in the enterprise fund versus there's really like 15 or 18 FTEs in the enterprise fund, but they're not full-time regular employees. There's camp counselors.
So probably for
lifeguards.
every other department other than Parks and Rec, that should,
And don't do it for fire,
be.
because call
Or fire.
numbers are gonna mess that up too. Yep.
okay.
But yep, and that's a
Everybody
call
else.
pay, but they might have their FTE equivalents in some of the narratives, so. But yeah, generally, for most of the standard kind of full-time departments, you can do what you just
Okay.
said. Unless they've got a lot of
thank you. I
special,
did want to
weird
just clarify
pay
that.
stuff. Parks and Rec fire should be it.
Okay.
If something looks really weird, just tell me and I'll see if it's because the numbers that you're dividing by need to be adjusted or whether
Makes
there's something
sense,
else
okay.
wrong, so, yeah.
Thank you.
All right, very good. I think that's it for planning, unless anyone missed a question.
Good job.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan.
All right, next up, assessing.
I did note that you get to go first next year.
Yep.
We're
All right,
flipping the
we're on
order
tab
every
4,
other
everybody.
You got to go first last year.
You did,
Oh, you
okay.
did,
Oh, that's why. yeah.
And Lynn offered for me to go first today.
Oh, that
Oh,
was
So that's all right.
Nice of her.
So I'm Luke Vigil, I'm your tax assessor. And as usual, I have a very simple budget.
all right.
I do want to go through and highlight a few things, one of which I think will help answer some questions you actually had for Lynn and Harry's budget as well. So I have no increases to salaries, no step increases on either of our salaries this year. There are 2 of us in the department. My assistant is covered by the new union, so the 25-cent increases, the 50-cent increase, those do apply to him. But I'm looking at a salary increase of 7.4%, which made me really dig into like, what is going on here? And what that came down to being is that our step increases that we all get are awarded on our anniversary dates. So it's not lining up with the budget year. So my assistant assessor has a step increase on the 26 budget that comes in the last week of his budget, of last year's budget. So you look at the 27 budget, though he's not scheduled for an increase in 27, you see the effect of, because he only had 1 week of pay at the higher rate in the 26 budget. So you'd have to look at everybody's anniversary dates in each department and see maybe 6 months of 26, they had a raise. So it would be much more simple if everybody just had an anniversary, their raises kicked in on the beginning of the budget year.
What
Yeah.
is this actual, and I don't know if it's a percentage increase, but what is the actual number in a step increase? Or is it
It
different by
is
union?
advertised as being 5%, but it's actually 4.82, 4.85, something like that.
And that's every 3 years
So
typically,
for
is
a
that right?
new employee, the first 3 years, they get it annually, and then it drops down to every 3 years. So my assistant assessor just got hit in June of the 26 budget. He's getting his 3rd and final annual step increase, and then he'll be on the 3-year schedule that I am on.
So in the first 3 years, when we hire a new person,
Yeah.
we're increasing their salary
Yes.
15% over the 3 years?
5 and 5 and 5.
Okay.
So it shows I'm getting,
plus COLA.
yes.
Plus COLA.
So that's essentially an 8% increase in a year like now.
Pretty sweet.
5% increase because COLA just keeps you flat to what cost of living, your purchasing power is the same from year to year.
But is it,
It was a budget increase.
In theory.
yeah, but, so in the first 3 years, just, so is it let's say 4.82 for the step increase plus another 3% if that's the COLA rate? 2.5.
So we're still at 7%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the COLA's put in at the beginning of the year, and the step increase varies by date. We've tried to, suggested over the years many times to try to get everybody to step on the same date.
Yeah.
And it just hasn't been very well received because of different fee structures in different departments and the way they give credit for certain things. I can explain further.
So I was shocked to see a 7.4% increase there, but that's what it turned out to be, is that my assistant only had 1 week under his new pay rate in the 26 budget. So it's really showing up in the 27 budget.
Right, right.
And then the vacation buyout, I'm not covered under that new union. That's for my assistant assessor in case he chooses to cash out some vacation time, so that's new. And that's really, other than a couple small things there, accounts for our 8.1% on the salary side of our budget. I only have a non-salary budget of $11,350, so it's very small. And it pretty much stayed flat if you look over the last 3 years. However, I am going to stop paying for deed copies. You'll see there's a line there, $1,600 for deed copies. They're not, it sounds like they send us hard copies of deeds. They don't. They send us a monthly scanned copy of our deeds. I've liked doing it that way because I have confidence that I'm seeing them all. I don't want to miss a transfer. But I can look up all the deeds myself, so we're just gonna go ahead and cancel that service and do it ourselves and just be diligent that I don't miss any. So I made that decision after we had already printed this and she had made the packets, so.
So that's a 0.
So, yeah, cross
can
off that,
expect-
make that a 0.
Thank you.
And I will note that our budget, total budget of the 367 and change is still less than our budget 4 years ago. Because we had more staff in the office at that time.
Just, you have 2 FTEs.
Yes, myself and the assistant assessor. Yeah.
The contracts line, it's not a recurring contract, I'm assuming, since we don't have a printout. Is it just similar to planning where it's like?
I'll tell you
this
exactly
comes
what
up?
it is.
Okay.
I have old copies of commitment books that I'm required to print when we do your taxes, we have to print a hard copy of everything and keep it forever. The ones that we printed through the 90s and into the 2000s were on a pin feed 11 by 17 printer. And I'm not exaggerating, they're about 10 inches thick. And I'm having those scanned and digitized so that I don't have to take up the space in the safe that is sprinkled. And I've got them now. Actually, I've had them, they are reprinting them in a bound book that's only 2 inches thick, and I now have an electronic copy. So I do 3 books a year. I'm working my way through.
Nice.
I hand deliver the books to Alpha Graphics in Portsmouth. I'm comfortable, I can drive them there. I'm not mailing it, and that's my one copy. So
Yeah.
I hand deliver it, and then I get it back.
Great. Thank you for explaining.
You're welcome.
So you're making room in the safe.
Making
Yes.
That was easier when they were here in town, I bet.
What's that?
That was easier when they were here in town, I bet.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions? No. All right. I think your point, I was just looking at the history that you included
Yeah.
on your
Yeah.
budget, which is
Really
very
helpful.
no, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Really
interesting.
helpful.
Yeah, that you've stayed flat for the last 10 years. in your
Oh, so
department.
you got the whole copy, the
Yeah, we
full
did.
thing? Oh, good. I was afraid you didn't get that.
No, I liked
we
the
gotta-
explanation of
okay.
the whole process. I was like, I love reading about this.
Yeah.
This is so helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay,
It's
thank you.
really good. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, the statistics are pretty staggering.
they are.
Yeah.
Like the valuations. and-
Yeah,
I'd say, yeah, I could talk to you for an hour just to learn, right?
Come in anytime.
yeah. 2 things that really stuck out to me were the $8.7 billion in assessed value.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
And that the average home price went up $88,000.
Amazing.
For reference, I did the numbers last year. I don't know how much they've changed. It was, Luke, what was it, between 2 and 2.5% of, between 1.8 and 2%, somewhere in that range. You can get into like aggregate assessed value of the state, for example, and it's like a portion. It's a measurable, I think it was close to 2% with our number last year.
I do
The
not recall.
aggregate state assessment that he's responsible for with 2 people for assessing, so.
Yeah.
And there's a couple hundred other assessors in the state.
Yep. We're the second highest valued town in the state. What makes us unique is it's almost all residential.
Yeah.
Can you,
Personal property is $45,000. There are towns that personal property dwarfs their real estate.
Interesting.
$45 million.
And those are businesses?
That is business equipment.
Business
Not the real estate, just the equipment inside the,
Okay.
yep.
Wow.
And then,
So for example, like a place that might manufacture a lot of canned goods and has an expensive assembly line.
Right.
And quality control equipment and electronic production and all that
Yes.
kind of stuff. So
it's the equipment they need to conduct business, essentially. And then exempt would be churches, town-owned properties.
yes.
Things like that.
thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
love it.
Fascinating.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's not an actual capital item right now, so no.
All right. On to information technology, GIS. Let's see, which tab number are we going to? Anybody have it?
10.
Thank you.
Maybe somebody could put the tab numbers on next year.
Yeah, I know, that's,
Hey, everyone. Alex Gagnon, IT Director. So I'm not sure, I guess, the best process to go through this, but I'll just start with the budget sheet, and then we can go from there.
Do you guys want narrative?
Or do you want me to do narrative first, I guess?
you can walk through for us, whatever order you would like, so.
I think it'd be great if you wouldn't. Yeah,
I
IT,
don't
sorry,
see
we're
it. Do you see it?
in
Tab
tab
10.
10.
Tab
It goes
10.
up.
All the way.
Okay.
Yep. No,
Back
no,
up to the top.
under admin.
Yep.
Oh, thank you.
Too far, Chris.
Thank you.
Cable TV and
Oh,
it's like up here.
Yeah.
It goes back up to the.
okay.
I think it would be really helpful for
Okay.
our viewing public, for you to talk about the savings realized that you've outlined in your narrative. Because this is a question that we get a lot, like, why aren't you asking what the savings are? So I'm asking what the savings are.
So you mean like specifically where I start with the licensing and whatnot? So yeah, one of my overall goals since I got hired has been reducing licensing where it's not needed, which is, or reducing that cost if we can spend it over like an annual time frame instead of a monthly time frame. So that's one thing that we did with 365. It's a very large expense every month. We went to an annual licensing model, and then we looked at the cost of those licenses based on the users. So all of our full-time employees will get an E3 license or a business premium license. They used to be E3. We went to business premium because it saves us a cost. We then reduced a lot of board members and part-time employees who are also getting assigned those licenses to E1s, which allows you guys to access your York, Maine emails primarily on the web only and use the web apps. The difference between an E3 or a business premium and a E1 is that we can have all those applications locally on our computer, and our phones and whatnot. So I mean, that cost alone is $13 per month per user. You guys understand how many different boards we have, part-time employees, things like that, that we're assigning these licenses out to.
Do you have an idea, ballpark, of what the big savings was for Microsoft?
I want to say it was around $1,500 a month.
Yeah.
It's pretty significant, especially when you factor in us going to the annual model instead of the monthly model. The next item that I looked at was Zoom.
Take some administration, but you're doing that once a year. I see you're going through the list and
Yeah.
looks like, hey, is this person still, so it's, you gotta keep in mind, it's to people who he doesn't necessarily know, and he's gotta, it's him, Catherine, myself, Diana, Dylan, talking about board members on and off, and it's a good exercise. It takes some time, but you save way more than
Yeah, and we're,
$1,000 worth of work over a week. You probably save $10,000 for the year.
right. Yeah, I'm not always in the loop on who's leaving boards and who's leaving the town and whatnot, other than really full-time staff when they're going through that process. So sometimes those get missed, so we'll run an audit, quarterly or every 6 months that will show who still has licenses assigned, and then I'll get with Catherine and have her go through those and let me know who's left and who's still here. The next item was for Zoom. So Zoom and Teams, which Teams falls under the 365 umbrella that all of our employees get. That started to get pushed about 3 years ago. So since I was hired, I've been moving and instructing everybody to use Teams, just because we don't have to pay double for the same piece of technology, if you will, to host meetings and whatnot. So now the only Zoom licenses that we have in town are for the library, so we can do hybrid meetings. There's 2 of them. I've only been contacted by 2 employees, and I did this about 4 months ago, so I don't think we're even really leveraging Zoom anymore, if I'm being honest. That was, I think, around $7,000 a year that we were able to cut out of the budget. Next is obviously Revenue Sense. That's Lynn's clerk software that they're using in the clerk's office daily. The cost on that's $30,500 annually. Obviously, it was our goal when we signed the Cassell contract to eliminate that from the budget, along with Infinite Visions, which is a Tyler Technology product. Happy to say that we've finally moved fully live with that in the clerk's office, so we won't have to pay that expense anymore moving forward for Revenue Sense, which is also a very old legacy system.
That gives us, still giving you access to the system and reading.
Yeah, so we'll still have full access to the system until not this coming June, but the following June. And we'll always have read access to that data, so we'll never go away. So Lynn can still use that to validate things when she thinks that she needs to do that. And then lastly was Adobe. Again, we were on a monthly licensing model with them. We went to annual because of the amount of licenses that we have. That allows us to save around $3,000. Primary need for Adobe is so that people can edit forms and sign forms electronically and whatnot. A lot of people use the read-only licensing, but a lot of the department heads, planning, code, finance, they all need that premium subscription. So yeah, I've been trying to do my best at eliminating those items that aren't necessarily needed, especially for how much they cost and given where we're at for our overall budget. Are there any questions on those specifically, or?
No, I just think it's a great example of when you put someone in charge of the department, that they can then do an evaluation of what's really needed. And, because I can imagine that using the service that we have, there's like add-ons all the time. Like you just mentioned Zoom, like everybody knows Zoom, and then all of a sudden we need Zoom. And to be able to do ongoing evaluations of what's really needed from a license perspective, I respect that takes a lot of time and energy, but it also is a recurring subscription cost that is not negligible. So I'm appreciative that some of your salary is going towards saving this money.
Yes,
So that's what I wanted to say.
And I think that's ongoing. I mean, I was just talking with Peter about our website. We're looking at potentially migrating to a different vendor because we have, Nubble, Parks and Rec, Town Hall, Public Works, a lot of different vendors that we're using. I just got a quote back from a company called Revise. I believe Kittery uses them, and Saco, I think, uses them as well. And the quote that they gave me was including all the data that we currently have on our existing website, which is a lot of junk, because there's nobody there that can really go clean that up. People add to it, but nobody cleans it up. So a large portion of that can be cut out, but the overall cost, I think, was $14,000 for the first year, and then I think it would be $8,000 after that. And we're currently paying Civic Plus almost $12,000 annually. So that's a project that we could do where it might be a little more upfront cost at the start, but then we'll save thousands of dollars year after year for a much better platform.
Yeah, great.
Great. Love that.
I can start going through the actual line by line budget if you guys want.
Travel and meals. Travel and meals was what? It went up quite a lot, the travel.
I was actually looking that when I was sitting down. That was a mistake of mine. That should just stay at $1,200. I only go on typically one conference per year. It's called the International Association Chiefs of Police Conference for Technology. I go with Sergeant Calcina, who's the technology specialist at the police department, and we just look for different tools that can help benefit us as a town and from a safety and police perspective. But that was a mistake. I actually saw that when I was going through this.
So let me just butt in too, because I think we got to probably shed some light on the fact that his primary job is police IT support. Let's be honest. I would say 50% of your time, maybe more. Like today, he spent the entire day at the PD because the phone lines were down from an outside vendor because a change that was made that had little to do with us. But of course, when you run a 911 dispatch center, you can't, or even a police station for that matter, you can't have the phone lines be down when it's all over IT. So like a ton of his, I know we all like, oh, thanks for, fixing the town hall screen and getting the website fixed up and everything. But like the actual core systems that he's working on, all of our servers are at the PD, everything's over there, it's all backed up, it's generated, it's backed up off-site. There's just an immense amount of support. I mean, primarily because of the police department, and then everybody else is kind of like
Yeah.
second.
Second.
Not that we're less important, but just the demand is immediate.
Makes sense.
For, I would say for public safety. If we were running an ambulance, it would probably, fire is a little bit less demanding for IT, but like ambulance and police are your two big immediate, you know, for writing reports and data keeping and dispatch and things like that, so.
And you'd say 50% is PD?
Kind of
or-
making that up, 40 to 50, I don't
say
know,
at
just based on
least-
your time.
I would say at least 50%, yeah. A lot of it's a lot of project-based and planning and whatnot. Everything has to be scheduled with them, so, I mean, for example, we worked from 8 to 5 on Monday, the holidays, because we had to replace 2 firewalls and upgrade 3 switches. So we were in there. That's part of the reason why we had the issues this morning. Not because of what we did. We called Consolidated and asked them to do what they needed to do on their side, and it ended up not going well. So the phones are back up right now. So and we're meeting with them tomorrow morning. So, but yeah, we also have Logically, obviously, which is the large line item for contracts. I think we pay them around $400,000 a year. But that, people look at that number and probably think, wow, that's a lot. But that covers our, you know, backups, licensing costs, 24/7 security from their Certain team, a dedicated engineer 20 hours a week, so he's in on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and every other Friday. And him and I work, that's the job I used to have, so him and I work very closely with each other. We're very lucky to have Rob at our disposal. But if you were to try to put that into full-time employees, we would need at least 4 more people to be able to cover what we're doing with me and Logically. There's a lot going on in the background, especially at the PD, so.
So one thing that you guys can relate to is on our budget, I guess there weren't, but Nan was there, but our ratings call with Standard & Poor for the recent bond issue that we sold, and our, as we've talked about, AAA bond rating. One of the 10 questions that they, 15, 14 questions, however many there were in their standard interview, it's like a significant portion of their rating is based on our cybersecurity, which, I mean, for that to be a financial indicator, it tells you how big it is. And there was a pretty detailed conversation that they wanted, you guys provided some good information, but like knowing exactly what tools we're using, what our extortion exposure is, you know, for phishing and, you know, what, something that might happen that might make us materially unable to pay debt back if we lost $10 million or something like that. So there's a huge, like, I was blown away by that. They're over the last 3 rating cycles, they've gotten, I think is probably people have defaulted on bond payments probably worldwide because they weren't able to
It's
recover
happening
from
every
those.
day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think
the
they were
risk
kind of
cannot be
surprised,
overstated.
you know, I think they're like, so how, no cyber attacks? I'm like, oh, tons of cyber attacks, none that were successful, because we hear from Rob and from you all the time of like, oh, so such and such happened, and the 24/7 monitoring caught it, you know, Tuesday morning at 3 a.m. or something, and shuts everything down, and next thing you know, hey, how come my computer's not working when I come into the office? Oh, because the network got compromised and somebody tried to attack it, but it was able to pull it apart, stop everything in its tracks.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, that felt really good for them to be able to be like, yeah, no successful hacks.
Do
and-
we also have a cyber policy and insurance coverage
Yes.
as well?
Yeah, and that's part of that big question. What's your cyber coverage? What are your products? What's your
Is it in-
practices?
Is it in the budget here? The cost
Yeah,
of that
so
insurance?
all that's rolled into the $400,000
Oh,
contract.
that's through Logically?
Not the cyber coverage.
cyber
That's in our
coverage. Okay, that's what I-
insurances,
okay.
but our protection, so we have special coverage, contracted service for covering our
So it's in
vulnerabilities.
contracts, just a
Right,
different.
they have a separate team that watches our stuff 24/7, and
Yeah.
if there's an incident that happens, they're engaged around the
Yes.
clock. Yeah. The insurance is separate. It's in insurances, Wendy? Is it through MMA? Yeah.
Yeah, so Certain is the company that they bought. And basically, they have a 24/7 SOC team that's getting alerted. And if they're alerted, they'll reach out to us, and then we essentially go into like a war room, and we start to try to plan out the best way to to get rid of the attackers and make sure that we're restoring our data to where it needs to be, if you will, through backups or
Right, it's not a question of when, it's a question of how often, how frequently you're getting targeted, and how successful are they, because it's constant.
Yeah, and we use a tool that we create what you call campaigns, and we send them out randomly to our town employees, and then I get a report on those. And I actually just reached out to Catherine and told her that we need to start doing some sort of like, if you've clicked on it.
Escalated training.
Yeah.
Every time.
Because it'll tell me if you've replied to it, forwarded it, clicked on it twice.
Put your bank info in.
Yes, everything.
Yeah,
So,
right.
I mean, I will say,
I mean, it's not perfect. We have had people fall for the fake phishing scam, which lets you know, even after education, that people can still be successful at hacking us. So like, we need that level of protection.
yeah. Well, that's why we don't allow Google Docs anymore. So we block Google Docs from being sent inbound from any companies because a lot of agencies got hit by that last year. And we were one of them. We were fine, obviously, but just as protocol, we blocked that. And Maine State Police, actually, that's their primary way of sharing documentation. So we had to go through some hoops to allow it for them. But we still block all Google Docs.
What was the name of that?
Google Docs.
Google Docs, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we use,
Good tool for non-critical, non-confidential information, but not great for,
if I told you guys how many times I had to go release emails for Google Docs.
Yeah.
I think some people might know
Yeah, probably, so,
in the room.
yeah. So I know that Luke and some others were talking about salaries. I know you guys heard about the steps, so I hit my last step this year. So my salary is just based off from COLA, or the raise is based off from COLA, and I'm in the, I'm in the 25 cent, or what the raises that we're getting.
I'll let you know tomorrow morning, depending how the rest of the interview goes.
Shows how much I care about it.
If you keep going the way you're going, you'll do good.
Obviously benefits and whatnot. I don't take any vacation buyouts. I use my vacations, so not putting any money in there. I tried to cut down on trainings just because, like I said, I go to one training a year, so don't need the $5,000 for just me. I really don't ever come close to spending that $2,500. I just have that in case for memberships and whatnot. Equipment, so I try to keep around $30,000, and we broke it out into two different areas this year. So small tools and supplies, and then equipment over $5,000. That's primarily just a small bank in case we're having any computer issues or equipment malfunctions and whatnot. With that said, we have swapped out about 90% of the devices since I got hired. So all of our current infrastructure from a server and networking perspective and then an end user perspective are in a really, really good place right now. I think we have like 30 machines right now that are remaining to be swapped out, but those are primarily for like the displays that we have at the PDs and fire departments and whatnot that just didn't get swapped because there wasn't really a need. The need now is that Microsoft went end of life with Windows 10, so we can obviously upgrade the devices that are able to be upgraded to Windows 11, but the devices that can't be upgraded to Windows 11 have to be replaced, or there's a little bit of a security issue for us with Microsoft making that EOL. Fiber connectivity, that went down slightly. I had included a little more just because of the town hall projects and me being interested in trying to add ELAN switches at remote locations like Mount A, Bog Road, those types of places where we're still having firewalls in place and not a direct fiber connection. Contracts went down a little bit, and that's again because of the Infinite Visions and Revenue Sense getting removed. And if you add those up, Castell is slightly more affordable for us from that perspective. Any questions on that?
You're up.
I was just going to ask about YouTube versus town hall streams.
Yes. So I saw that I put in the contracts list that was a little old, I guess, so I apologize to you guys and Wendy. So hopefully middle of next month, we'll be able to go live with YouTube. There is no cost to using YouTube, so the $8,100 that we spend a year will go away. Slight cost for the equipment and the encoder and whatnot that's needed in the closet here.
Less than $8,100?
A lot less, yeah. But yeah, so once we get the encoder and whatnot, I'll be working with Dylan from Connectivity Point to get us up and running on YouTube. I actually, when I was out back, I was thinking that it would be a good idea with all of these online tools that we're rolling out. YouTube will be a good place for us to have like a department head upload a video or something of whatever's going on in their department, or an instructional video for people to be able to log on to OpenGov and make those payments. We're very close right now. I didn't have time to work with Susan today, but with Express Bill Pay, which will then start allowing the real estate and personal property payments to be online as well through Cassell. So getting that education out there, because I don't know if everybody goes to our website or not, and it's pretty clunky.
So what, 14,000 transactions twice a year for real estate and personal property, does that sound right?
Yeah.
So a big bulk of those come through single vendor, like mortgage clearinghouses. I'm gonna space on the name of the mortgage. CoreLogic, and there's like 3 of them that do, big chunks, 10 plus 20% of our transactions, but, half people aren't under mortgage any given year and are writing checks, transactions. So if there's 15,000 transactions twice a year, 30,000 trips, a lot of those are foot trips, either in the mail or foot trips to the town clerk's office. If those could be automated through online payments, similar to how the mortgage clearinghouses automate their payments, that'll be a huge, it's not even, half of what Lynn does with voting and dog registrations and everything else, but like just taking that traffic, foot traffic out, will be really interesting to see where that goes over the next 10 years, 5 years.
And they provide us marketing materials to get that word out.
That's great.
Well, before we let the YouTube town hall streams go, I just want to tell you how sad I'm going to be to lose town hall streams.
Because you've gotten so good at dragging and dropping instead of reversing and using
Can
buttons.
you tell everyone how many texts you sent to IT Alex? Just all
So many.
Okay.
So I'm very appreciative
So
that
the
you're
efficiency that's going to come, we thank
so
you.
good.
It's really the
Everybody-
process of retrieving them.
I
that-
bet. But I mean, just like the ability for people to easily watch meetings
Yeah.
is really important.
Yeah.
And so the UI with town hall streams is so difficult.
Yeah.
And so it is not, I'd love to make it about me, but it really is like such a good thing for the citizens to be able to know.
Everyone's used to using
Exactly.
the interface of YouTube anyway. So even if we do
Exactly.
nothing different, at least it's a common I know
We
it's
can also
not.
get transcripts, right? And be able to
Yes,
see what the.
And chapters.
Right,
there's
chapters.
So
a
great,
lot that
so
you can
great.
do
So
with it.
thanks,
Yeah.
thanks for pursuing that.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
that's
of course. And it's affordable, which is the
Great.
good thing, so.
That's great.
Yeah. This is one that even if it
Listen.
wasn't a budget savings, it would just be like,
Yeah.
let's go.
It's almost
Like, let's do it.
Middle of next month, Alex?
I said,
Yes.
Middle of next month.
Yes.
So just timing wise, we'll be in the middle of these guys meeting heavily with the schools. So I don't know,
We'll make sure that it works before we roll it out.
or that there's, how long do you think town hall
Hopefully we can do
streams will
both.
stay side by side for a while? Just-
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine. We also have to go through the planning of pulling everything down and what we want to put up on the YouTube website and whatnot from
If we can,
past
I think
meetings.
if we can start through March, through the kind of end of the, getting ready for the referendum in May,
Yes.
with just putting new stuff on YouTube and still duplicating everything on town hall streams, and then
Yeah.
after we get
During the
through,
transition.
I'm thinking through the one we were talking about today, the public hearing
Yeah.
in the select board, the first and second meetings, and
Yeah.
getting
Yes.
school stuff
So
in.
important.
Yep, then after that, if we can work on, that would be great if we could, but go live as soon as you can get the YouTube live, so we can test
Yeah.
them side
That's
by
right,
side.
yeah.
and-
The citizens are going to love it. It's
Yes.
great.
I hope so. I think they will.
Oh, I,
Yeah.
And it's nice because you have your own page, you can set like I was playing around with it when I had like 15 minutes where you can, it reminds me of like on Facebook where you see a cover photo or something, you can put like the town's name and maybe like Nubble or something like that, but it's at least branded, right?
Have
for
your
us.
own channel.
So, yeah.
Channel, yeah. That's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
no?
I had a quick question when you were talking, not that I know what you were talking about, I was talking about setting up like a switch at Bog Road when you're talking about fiber connectivity. So I know you're not in the business of providing, so to speak, like, Wi-Fi at Bog Road that's public, so to speak, but there's football, there's baseball, and I know they would, like last year I had to set up like a hotspot to get the POS to work to accept credit card at Bog Road. If there's any part of whatever you're doing that would allow some sort of access to Wi-Fi that, again, the York Football Club and, York Little League could support themselves, but if there was some way to get connectivity there, I'm sure they would be very happy about that.
So I should go back up there. So I put a couple of high-powered access points, one at Mount A and then one at Bog Road. The one at Bog Road doesn't really reach to the football field. It's kind of only in that parking lot area. But if you connect to it, it's free. You go to a splash page where you agree to the terms and conditions that we've set. But that was to try to help alleviate some of those problems. If that's not good enough, then yeah, we can absolutely look at setting up something else.
I'm sure I didn't even know about it.
No, yeah.
Well, you probably can't get it. We're, like at the two booths, like at the, is there a booth at the football field, like a snack stand?
There
or
is, yep. They do
like a booth?
concessions there, yeah.
Concessions? Because then even, right, like they
also
can
Parks
work
and
with
Rec
rec to get, I mean, I wouldn't be careful with just leaving it completely open and unsecured, but if even the agencies that are using like swipes or,
Yeah, it would just to be to set up the square terminal
Yeah.
so you can take card, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We can look at that, making it better especially.
Yeah, I know you did that at the bathhouse too.
Yeah,
Parks
and the
Rec, too,
bathhouse.
For
Great.
town connectivity or like rec affiliated users, groups, things like that, so at least they can have be password protected for users or outside group access and stuff.
Yeah.
We're kind of desperate for anything with the state of cell phone coverage around here.
I've noticed some
Getting
improvements.
better. There's some
I was at
micros
Harbor
going
Beach and
up.
had cell services here. I don't know how that happened, but it's
There's a lot of
unbelievable.
micro cells going up on the
Okay, yeah.
poles, which
Couldn't
require
believe
fiber
it.
connectivity.
1A specifically, not much off of 1A, but yeah, there's some good ones.
Yeah.
That's great.
And some towers, two of them mid-construction,
Yes. Yeah, another one.
mid-cycle, not building right now, but yeah.
I know we had talked at one point, I admittedly don't remember what the meeting was, but with the schools, and we had talked quite a bit about their servers being in the basement of the middle school and potentially either using battery backup to help them or them moving some of their equipment, I think, into the police department, if I'm
Somewhere with a generator?
Yes.
with a generator. I was just curious on the state of all of that,
hall.
kind of sharing.
So we're on
discussion.
generator backup at the town hall too, so we've got plenty of space.
Yeah,
We
so,
have space.
Not at the PD though, right?
Not at the PD. PD's pretty packed.
yeah, it
Although
was
we
the-
pulled
that's
out
right,
a
it was
lot
town
yesterday.
hall. was-
Yeah, town hall would be the best space for it. There have to be a lot of planning going into that because of the network that they're using is different than what we use because all of the schools are on the main school and library network.
Yes, Ellen.
So they would have to run a circuit to the town hall, which I think they could. I haven't heard any more discussions on that. I do know that we had a couple years ago when we were going through our one stage of our upgrades at the PD, primarily the networking and battery backups. The wrong UPS was ordered for us. It was an 8 kVA UPS instead of a 16 kVA UPS. The 8K is the same thing that we have at the town hall now. That will provide us with runtime for hours, given the amount of equipment that we have in there. If there's a major issue, I called people at Logically that I know, and we had that at the PD for quite some time, and they were trying to, I guess, resell it to another client like Wells or something. They told me I could give it to the school. So I reached out to Eric. I believe they came and got that, but now they at least have a pretty good battery backup option that they're moving to the school, which is a lot better than what they had.
Yeah. That's great.
So that's like a $20,000 unit that they gave us.
So how many, just for, how many hours of coverage does that extend roughly?
I
If you have
don't
to guess.
know all of their equipment that they have there.
I think they had like
they're-
40 minutes on their existing, if I remember.
Yeah, I would say it's a couple hours at least.
Okay.
Probably, I don't think they have much infrastructure over there unless you have obviously the least
Yeah.
less power it takes. But
Very
if I-
small closet, if
Yes,
that's
it is. Have you been in there?
Can fit a
Small
lot
house,
of
very
electrical drawn into a very small
it makes me
closet.
feel spoiled at the PD and town hall, so, yeah.
No, that's great though, but thank you for following up and following through on that. That's a
Yeah, of
that's
course.
great help for the schools. I just had one other question, actually not directly budget related. You mentioned the Microsoft licenses, which is a great savings there, but I was curious if there's any uptake in the town or usage of Copilot or any of the other Microsoft tools that can accelerate productivity so much with all of the data that we're now digitizing, which is huge. There's just tons of potential. I was curious on what your thoughts were and how those conversations were.
There is, and right now we're storing most of our documents on a file server, so it's
great.
outside
So
of,
super
yes.
helpful. Okay.
I actually started talking with you about moving to like a SharePoint model
Yep.
where everything's online and we can leverage things like Copilot. I wish people would come to me asking me if they could use those tools, but not a lot of people
Okay.
are interested in that, if you will.
Yeah, it takes a lot of education to even
does.
understand what
Yeah.
the potential is and then
does.
how much more productive every single employee could
He
be.
knows how much I use the tools,
Yep,
so,
good.
yeah.
Well, I'm
There's
glad to hear
Alex,
that.
and then there's the rest of us that watch the Terminator franchise.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Well, there's a lot of great Copilot videos on YouTube.
There is.
In case you wanted to start, but in all
This is
seriousness.
one of the AIs less likely to kill you in your sleep. That's
Yeah.
a pretty good one. So I'm on a list now. I think.
And
the
it is
AIs are
highly
watching us.
secure, which but just saying for everybody, this is something that I, use in my work life as well, and it is incredible. But that move from servers to SharePoint is a first critical step. Is that anywhere in your plan? So as the rest of our town employee base kind of comes up to speed, maybe with all of the potential, that we'd
I
be
certainly
ready?
hope so. I think so much of my time the last year has been dedicated to the Cassell.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I think I've aged 10 years, but we're getting close to being done with that. Now I'll have a lot of time to focus on things like that, which is definitely things that are on my mind.
That's great.
Yeah.
I have a question. How do you feel about the postponing of the body cameras for police? Based on your technology, understanding of AI and all that other stuff.
Sure. I understand everyone's concerns, so I'll give you my personal opinion based off from the work that I did to present to the board. We had meetings with them. They had their full legal counsel there, leadership, engineers, everything. And they basically went through their results of their audit and what they found and explained that to us. So after the meeting, I asked for them to have a meeting with me and Lieutenant Piscopanis to.
I know where you're going.
Oh, are we going with the body cameras? Sorry, I
Taser
thought you were,
brand
I
body
thought you were
cameras.
talking about Route 1.
No, body cameras.
Body cameras.
He was going surveillance camera.
I was
Right.
saying
Got
surveillance
it.
cameras.
Cameras. Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
sorry.
All these
Because we
cameras.
postponed that
Yeah, right, yes.
temporarily.
No, I'm wondering about the body cameras and the concerns about AI. And when we had our tour, Chief Davis played the tape that one of his colleagues had created of
Yep.
his voice. And
Yep.
so for you, the expert in AI on our team, how are you feeling about postponing that?
I think given where we are in the state of Maine and where we're at with our technology, I don't think it's a bad thing to postpone it. I don't know enough about it, to be honest. I know more about the cameras I was just talking about than I do the body cameras. I think there's a lot of benefits that come with them. For example, when right now, I believe when the officers are pulling somebody over, they're only getting front camera and back camera. Obviously, when they leave, if there's a foot chase or anything like that, we don't know what happened. There's also tools that we saw at the conferences that Matt and I have gone to where there's GPSs in those body cameras, so it's able to track them where they're going, which allows dispatch to be more effective in their response time. It is something that I think is important, but I feel like most places that are implementing those cameras right now are pretty large cities and whatnot. I'd love to be on like the cutting edge and stuff with that, but as we saw with the cameras through the other company, there's a lot that we need to think about and sit down and talk
Yeah.
about before making that decision.
Surprisingly, the tide has shifted on that one. I feel like the push is in the PD and like less in the public, which blew my mind. There's actually people who you would have assumed had a certain position based on political affiliation, both directions, have almost gone the other way in the past 5 years. It's really surprising. There's concern about invasion of privacy, about data collection, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah. Well, given I was more asking with your experience and especially the amount of time you seem to be spending in the PD,
Yeah,
what your opinion was. So thank you.
yeah, of course.
with Owen getting spoofed by
Right.
his,
Yeah.
I saw the videos.
But what about those surveillance cameras?
They, as long as Flock is abiding by the contractual agreement with us, I am totally okay with them. Obviously, there was a lot of concern, and I completely understand that. I understand the pause that was put on them, and I know that it was said that they were in our cameras. There's a difference between in our cameras and essentially querying cameras for a license plate, right? So they weren't just going into York's camera system and looking at our camera specifically for something. They were querying a license plate of, like the guys who they caught down here on Main Street or York Street that were wanted for murder and abuse of corpse, I think. So they get a license plate that they're interested in. They queried the national lookup, which our cameras were in. It didn't yield any results for any of the federal Immigration Patrol and whatnot that were in Homeland Security that were accessing some of those cameras. So they never leveraged our cameras for anything. And they're not supposed to be able to do that at all.
But we have certain surveillance cameras in locations around town. Is that how that works?
We have the Flock cameras, which are like on the Route 1 on the spur when you're getting on and off the interstate and whatnot. So basically any car that's going through there. But pertaining to like the PD and town hall, we don't have, internally, we don't have any surveillance cameras. I have probably doubled the amount of.
Define.
Do they
Yeah,
talk
define
about,
surveillance,
So we're
I
saying the
guess.
same
do they
thing.
talk about that kind of thing, like getting surveillance cameras, like watching certain roads or certain red lights, say, or
No.
So you're limited in Maine under state law of what you can use them for. So
Okay.
traffic control cameras are not allowed, so you can't write tickets, red light tickets, speeding tickets based on it. You can use them to search for vehicles, but there always has to be a hard.
Okay.
So what the cameras that they have, the mild controversy or moderate controversy we had there, those flag license plates, but there still has to be a hard officer contact after that to
Okay.
enforce something. So you can't just say, we set a radar gun up and point one of those cameras at it and say every time you drive by
Right.
50 into 35, you're going to get a ticket for going
right,
15
like
over.
those
But
signs that
if,
flash
for
me all
example,
the time.
if, for example, you're a criminal speeder that has
Exactly.
500 points in your license and the PD needs to find you and they
Right.
put you on that and it flags, then when you drive by, they can then go find you and say, hey, we have a
Oh.
warrant because you sped 400
Oh.
times through a school zone. Come with us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've had LPRs since 2016, I think, so it's been 10 years. These are just a newer technology of that. The prior LPRs we had, they used to alert the officers when someone's registration was expired. These do not do that. They're really only used for very malicious crimes, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Any other operating questions? I know there's one capital request that we want to hit.
Do you guys want me to talk about the cable access or?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything
Okay,
there that
I just wanted to touch on that
Sorry.
quickly. No, that's okay.
Sure.
So really, the only big item was that I increased the budget from 17,500 to 25,000. The reason why I did that is, for one, I don't think they get paid enough for what they're doing. I think it's now with the minimum wage increases, it's basically around minimum wage, and it's a job that somebody either really wants to do or they're a part of the community and they don't mind being here and getting paid for it. But it's very hard to keep them and find people that do it, and the people that we have are good at what they they do, given the circumstances, right? I know it doesn't always work perfect, but it's hard. It's a hard position in there that they're doing. So that was primarily the reason why I increased that line.
We don't have a bench either in terms of people to call in. There's like 4.
Yeah.
And there's not anybody else signing up to.
4, 5?
Yeah, I think 4 right now, and we're very lucky to have Dana, who's in town.
So you're hopefully going to recruit more.
I would like to have one more person, or two.
So we can spread.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because right now, when someone goes on vacation, which people are allowed to do when you like have part-time gigs, you don't like give up your life or your retirement. We've got a couple of retired employees to, stick around York all the time so you can make sure you film night meetings. So makes it difficult. I'm thinking like Bill's away.
I was to say, Bill and Dana help a lot.
Then all of a sudden there's, 2 people and 3 people, one of them gets sick, and then we're really in trouble because no one can film the planning board or film you guys or the select board. So.
Okay.
Great.
So you're saying that booth operator is the 25,000 and that's one person?
No, that's what we pay all of them over the course of the year.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
So you're talking about 6 resources is what you're looking for?
Yeah, I would like to get 6.
Looking for 6.
Yeah, at least 2 more, yeah.
So the increase isn't necessarily COLA and such, it's more that it's
Yeah,
more,
no,
more
yeah,
people,
yeah,
more human power.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then capital, is that?
Yeah.
So for FY '27, the capital's high. It's just under $400,000, $398,500. That's purely because every 5 years, we try to rotate all of our server infrastructure. So this includes our host servers, which are all of our VMs are running on, and VMs are hosting applications like Cassell, Revenue Sense, Infinite Visions, different tools like that. Our 2 physical domain controllers, and then all of the storage, switching, and SANs that basically the Hyper-V servers are working with the storage switches and whatnot for our environment to send traffic to where it needs to go, and us to have enough storage to host the applications that we do. That number is always high. I think we were asked to try to spread that out over a couple of different years. That may end up what ends up happening, given the project planning and whatnot. I know last time we did this, we purchased the equipment and then we were rolling it out in stages because it's so much infrastructure going in. But that's primarily why that's so high. And all of that equipment will be 5 years old come FY '27. So by the time it will get replaced, it'll probably be closer to 5.5, 6 years old, after we purchase it and do the planning to implement. And then the same goes for the following 2 years. It's more or less, I think next year's a few switches and battery backups, replacing batteries and whatnot that I was just talking about for those UPSs. And then the following year after that is replacing more of the core switching that we have at different locations. The 2 firewalls and the 3 switches that we replaced on Monday would have been budgeted probably 5 years ago in that capital plan, and those items are probably around $100,000 that we put in on Monday, so.
What do we do with the old equipment? Is there still value to it? And
So I'll keep it if I can and just use it as a spare in case something happens. Most of the time, we don't really have a big use for it, and the amount that we're gonna get for resale is not great. I know that there's different companies like Greater Portland Health and whatnot who may buy those firewalls that we took out, but it's almost not worth the time, if you will, to go through
really,
that
they're
process.
that
Yeah, it's just,
negligible in terms of value.
yeah, and honestly, they shouldn't be buying them.
Well, right. If the technology is obsolete and it's going to
Yeah.
pose a risk, then sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
We do have a lot of GBICs that were ordered before I got here, and those have some value, so I'm hoping that I can go through those and we can resell those. I think we can probably get $20,000, $30,000 back for those items, and that's worth it because those are still being used on, doesn't matter what generation switch is coming out. But yeah, I guess if the time time is right. People ask me that about iPads too and whatnot when we get them back, and it's kind of like they're 5 years old. Let's just wipe it, and I don't care what you do with it.
How many of those VMware host servers are there total?
3.
3. So it's
Yeah.
just those 3 that need to be replaced?
Yes.
Is there a way to stagger those? Would it ever make sense to?
It doesn't really stagger them because those are dynamic, where they're kind of shuffling this VMs based off of resources that are needed. So I would hate to have like one powerful new Hyper-V host server, and then like in some, maybe the police RMS software gets moved to a weaker system and puts us in a more a worse state, right? From
So
a
you just want to maximize compatibility and just put them in as a system and make sure it all jives?
It helps make everything just flow more efficiently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you notice a decline? I mean, in year 5 versus year 1?
Not really. I think the biggest, what's the word I'm looking for? I think the hardest thing was the network, right? Because we were running on a 100 meg network until last year. So we just upgraded to a gig now, but our infrastructure has 10 gig throughput. So when it's sending data back and forth to each other,
I mean, are there other products on the market that would have a longer life?
There are. So we just used HPE last time for those devices. We can certainly look at Hyper-V, different things.
Yeah.
Same as switching. A lot of people are going away from Cisco now. I've just always worked with Cisco, but I'm not, if we're gonna save a little money and they can guarantee the longevity of the device, then I have no reason not to go with another option.
Yeah.
And that's what we work with Logically on. So another piece of the Logically contract is we have a person named Eric, who I know very well, and he acts as our VCIO essentially. So I get, I think 8 hours a month where I can pick his brain on whatever I need. And he knows our network inside and out from how long he's been at Logically. And he's a good resource for advice on what types of, because this is what he's doing day in and day out.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? All right.
I think they fixed the heat.
I know, right?
I'm cold.
Hands are,
My hands are cold.
It's
Yes.
cold.
Tonight it's cold.
Yeah.
Like in the downward direction. Remember it was too hot
Yeah, we
last
didn't have
I
to
think
open the
they
door high.
shut it off at 9.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah,
They're
yeah, they
telling
got
us
it
to
at
go
9.
home.
So we had to
Don't you
keep
use
the
more
energy
energy
costs.
heating it back up the next
Yeah,
morning?
yeah.
No, I was told to keep it flat is the smoothest way.
It's all right. With that, I think we are done, Alex, with IoT and GIS. So
Alex.
thank you for
Alex.
Thank you.
answering all of those questions. I would like to propose that maybe we push finance to Thursday, if that would
She'll
work.
be here
Sounds
next
good.
week, or she'll be here Thursday as well, right? So Wendy and I will both be here, so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, if anyone's really going to argue with that. All right, so we will pick up with the finance department on Thursday and then cover the rest of the town departments. And then, as I mentioned before, our next public comment is February 12th, so we got a couple weeks for that. All right. Anything else before we pause for tonight? Okay.
Great job.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good job, Court.